And welcome to the August meeting of the Plymouth Township Zoning Hearing Board. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a pretty full agenda tonight, and we're going to start off with a continued case from last month, and that is the Silver Springs Martin Luther School. Did you want to read it in again, Dave?
Yeah. This is a continued hearing from... What's that?
It's right on the screen.
Oh, okay. I know. It's a continued hearing from July 19th, 2021, at which time we heard the applicant's case. The board marked appropriate exhibits, and we left off, due to time restrictions, with the board asking questions of, I believe, Ms. Morrison, and any of the other witnesses that the board wants to continue to ask questions of. And we will follow that by public comment. Public comment is just that. Public comment, when I ask for it, raise your hand, come forward to the microphone, identify yourself for the record with name and address, and make your comment to the board. It's not a question and answer session. It's just a public comment session where you can say whatever you want, pro, con, or neutral to the application.
Did they get sworn in? Did they get sworn in? I don't think so. Okay.
So at that point, once public comment is done, we will ask council if they have any more closing remarks to make. The board may deliberate and make a decision tonight, or else they'll have 45 days from the close of the hearing in order to render a decision. So without further ado, I think the board was questioning Ms. Morrison. Ms. Fritchis is here representing the applicant. Ms. Fritchis, is that where we stand?
Yes, Mr. Sander, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Allison Fritchis on behalf of the applicant. We have no more testimony to present as far as direct testimony. We do have Ms. Morrison as well as the other members of our team who the board had asked the majority of questions to at the last meeting, if you have any additional questions.
Okay.
I wanted to note one thing. Myself and Mr. Raimondo are not participating in the hearing tonight. We were not here in July, and we're not participating tonight because we weren't here in the original hearing. So it's the other three board members. Mr. Aprile will be the chair tonight for this hearing.
Understood. Thank you.
Let the record also reflect that at the last hearing, Ms. Pygat was here, but she is not here tonight. So we will have 3 of the 4 zoning hearing board members who heard the case from the beginning potentially making a decision this evening. So Mr. Aprile, Mr. Daly, Ms. Leddick, the witnesses are yours for questioning.
So, Ms. Leddick, do you have any questions? You know, before we get into questions, could we just do a quick summary of
That would be
where
great.
we're at? So we're all on the same page here? What the ask is for?
Sure. So we had asked for 3 things. First it was our initial interpretation of the zoning decision that we did not need additional relief from the zoning hearing board. The township zoning officer disagreed with us, so our first request is for an appeal decision of the zoning officer. In the alternative, our request is for an amendment to the 1971 or 72 decision, I can't remember which, to amend the decision to allow for the school to educate high school students grades 9 through 12. That's what we're looking to educate students 9 through 12. The state has recently expanded our license to enable us to do so, and that's what we're looking. That's what the ask is. That's what we're asking for from the board. And the alternative, if the board was not to amend that decision, is for a new special exception approval which was the original approval by special exception to allow the grades 9 through 12 at the school.
Okay.
And if I also could, we also worked out conditions with the township. That's why this is postponed for a few months. The township does not object to this. There are 2 conditions they asked to be put on an approval. We're happy to put those on the approval. And the Planning Commission also recommended the special exception approval.
Okay, so what are the conditions from the township that you agreed to?
I could read them, Mr. Prilly. And I'm looking at Exhibit B6, which was marked at the first hearing. This is a letter dated July 15th, 2021, from jointly signed by Ms. Fritschus on behalf of the applicant and Mr. Heleniak, Heleniak, attorney from the Township Solicitor's Office. And the 2 conditions are as follows. 1, no student in the residential treatment program may be older than 14 years of age unless a student is taking academic classes at an 8th grade level. Under no condition shall high school students be residents in the residential treatment facility. And 2, applicant will put measures in place to ensure students remain on campus and provide additional security in a number proportional to the number of current security personnel to current students as to the additional students proposed to be on campus. So number 2 sort of is maintain the same ratio of security to students. With the increase of students, you proportionally increase the number of security personnel. So those are the 2 conditions that the township and the applicant agreed on if approval is granted.
Mr. Sander, if I could, even though one of the conditions has to do with the residential treatment facility, this application really has nothing to do with the residential treatment facility because we're only asking to add students to come in the morning to the school and leave in the afternoon. So it has no effect on the existing use of the residential treatment facility. It's just the school. But we didn't have a problem with that condition, so we agreed to add it to the list.
Correct, but it touches on the relief granted because it talks about with the potential of having 9th to 12th graders or children older than 14 years of age, this prohibits them from participating in the residential treatment program or living at the residential treatment facility if they're above 8th grade. So that's how it bears on the relief sought to have 9th to 12th graders.
Okay, and can we just clarify the ratio? Is it security per child or is it staff per child that we're talking about?
It would be staff per child, and Ms. Morrison can address that further if you need more detail.
And what's the current, I have that the current staff to child is 1.5 to 1. Is that true?
Morrison, you want to address that?
Yes, good evening. My name is Ava Morrison. We currently have 120 staff and approximately 200 students. So
You have 120 staff and 200 children.
that's correct.
So you're not even at 1-to-1 yet, right?
We're not at 1-to-1. We're at some fraction. So we have slightly more students. We have 80 more students than we have staff.
Right, so you're like
1.8.
6 to 8, is that right? 6 to whatever. 60%, 0.6. And so where do we get 1.5 to 1? Staff to
So
student
typically,
ratio?
if you have a classroom and you have one teacher and 12 students, that's a 1-to-12 ratio in EduSpeak. So I
Okay.
think you're just looking at it through a different lens.
Ms. Morrison, I just have in my notes that I have 1.5 staff to every 1 student, and I'm just trying to clarify that.
Yeah, I think that's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, there was a
We have 120 staff to approximately 200 students.
I think that was corrected. I think it was initially stated one way in the last meeting and then corrected.
There was some
later on.
confusion about that, that's right.
So what is it?
We have 120 staff to 200 students, and I'm sensing your math is going to be better than mine on that.
6, it's 0.6. Was there a requirement in the prior orders that required more staff to student? I thought it was a 1-to-1 ratio, and that was for younger students.
I'm not aware of a ratio that's 1-to-1.
The ratio of staff to pupils is 1-to-1 or better. This is on the 1971. I was 11 years old in 1971, so I didn't write it.
I was 6 for the
That's a
record.
finding of fact, though. That doesn't seem to be a condition.
Yeah, Dom, is that a finding of fact in that decision in 1971?
That's how it's-
That's not a condition of approval, is it?
You could be right.
It's the 9th point under Section 2, findings of fact.
Not a condition.
So there's the final. You know what the final order said? That's what I was looking for.
I don't know what happened.
I just want everything be clarified here, so we know what we're talking about.
Order, okay, here's the order.
Yeah. Yeah. It was for the record, it was a finding of fact in the 1971 zoning hearing board decision that at that time, the ratio of staff to pupils was 1-to-1 or better. That was just part of the testimony at that time. Obviously, it is, over the years, it has become less than 1-to-1.
Okay.
Now 0.6-to-1.
So now, as part of this order, if it's approved, there's a condition on staff to students. Is that correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
No. Dom, that was security. That wasn't staff.
That's security.
That was the additional security.
Okay, so how many people do we have in security today for 200 students?
Internally, we had 6 climate officers. We've now added a 7th. In addition to that, externally, we have 2 security officers. The security officers are more to ensure that the folks who are coming onto campus are safe.
That's fine. No, I'm happy to hear that. So you have 9 security officers between people on payroll and people that you subcontract out to
That's correct.
200 people, to 200 students.
How did we get 8? I mean, 9. 6 climate officers and 2 external?
I thought it
We
was.
hired a 7th climate
Yeah, just
officer.
hired-
Okay. I apologize.
You asked us to ramp up our internal security, so we did.
Okay. And what is the plan for students going forward?
Could you just be a little more specific? Is this in the area of security? Or are you asking me the number of students? I'm
Well,
not sure what you're asking me.
What I understand is you guys are going to agree to maintain the same student to security ratio. So right now you have 9 security officers to 200 students. So I'd like to know how many students you want to go up to. Or
So-
are you going to, I heard that there's 350 allowed already? There's no limit? You can go up to 350 students, is that correct? Or is that a combination of students and residences? I'm just trying to clarify all the facts here, because there's some misleading information in these documents.
So we have a school which is separate from the residential treatment facility. So we're here on behalf of the school. When there are students who are admitted to the residential treatment facility, they apply to our school. We admit approximately 50% of those students. We don't serve the needs of all students, so we only take students that we think are a good match. So in the residential treatment facility, there are 75 beds. It is unlikely there will ever be more, and we're certainly willing to agree to the condition of, which has always existed, of students who are either 14 and in 8th grade, but do not exceed 14 years of age.
So does the 75 beds plus the 200 students, that means you have 275 people occupying today?
During certain times of the day, but not continuously, because we have students from the residential treatment facility who go to other schools, about half of them. And the children who come to our schools go home at 3 o'clock.
Okay,
So concurrently, you don't have all of those students on campus.
okay. And then how about security now? Is the 9 security staff, is that just for the school, or is that for the school and the treatment facility?
Are you asking about the contracted security officers who come to our
I'm
campus?
talking
or-
about the 9 security people.
They are
we
just
have
for
today.
our school. They're during the school day.
Okay, so they all go home at night?
They all go home at night,
And
yes.
there's no security at night when there's 75 beds there?
I am 100% sure there's security at the residential treatment facility, but I do not direct that facility, so I can't give you that answer.
Okay,
My partner, Neil, might be able to give that answer for you.
that's fine.
Hello, I'm Neil Clark.
Do you have to be sworn in?
They have previously been sworn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and they're
So,
still under oath.
About the 350, when they moved up to the campus, I've been there 36 years, coming and going. So I left for 6 years in public work, and I'm back. So back in the 70s, when they moved up there, finding of facts do talk about 350. The 350 was the total number of people on the campus, kids on the campus. That was it. Had nothing to do with the school or whatever. In the 70s, when they came up there, most of the children went to school in Colonial School District and places like that. We didn't really have a school on the campus. They had a small school, and there was like 9 and 10 kids in it. So that's where that one-to-one's coming from, I'm guessing, because I looked at the fact and finding of facts also. So that was back in the 70s. And a lot of the kids went to Colonial. That has changed. Ms. Morrison talked about 75. It's 72 beds we have. But we only have 56 filled right now. And that's what it's been with COVID coming along and all that other stuff. We're only at 56. Does that clarify the numbers thing?
A little
There's
bit
no
better.
security.
So let me ask you this, Neil, and I don't mean to steal your thunder here. We have 72 beds and 56,
There's 56 on
Occupied.
campus now, the children that live there.
and you could go up to 72
We
under
do
state
We're
law.
licensed for 72, yes.
Okay, on your licensing.
Always.
And then the 350 is a
The
total
350 is a
combined of
total
the school
number.
and the,
Yeah, that's in the 71 findings here. It just talks about 350 total. It wasn't in the decision, I think it was in the findings.
okay. So today you could have 350 occupants, whether they're in, and which you could have 72 beds filled, and then the balance could be in school.
Could be,
That's the max?
yes. Yep.
Okay. And today we have 56 in residences and 200 students.
200 students.
Is that right?
200, right? Ian?
We currently have 200 students.
Did I just say that?
Yeah, she said, yep, 200.
Okay. 200 students and 56 in the residence. So
Correct.
total occupancy is 256 today.
Today.
Okay. So the max you could add is 94 under
Based
your
on-
licensing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's the fact, finding the fact.
And then from the security side, because that's getting tied into this, how much, we have 9 security officers daily for the school. Do we have any, in addition to that, do we have more security for the residents?
We do not have security for the residents.
Okay, so there's no security at the
There's
residences?
no hired security. I mean, there's mental health workers, there's a lot of people that work down there.
Staff.
Similar to like climate officers at the school.
Is a climate officer another name for a security officer or no?
Yeah, that's school terms it is. They call them
Okay.
climate officers. We hire 2 full-time USS Security Care and Bluebell do our service on the campus. And that really fell out of we were threatened several times, so we had to hire some folks to help keep things calmed down, and it's worked. It's more the outside coming in, not the inside going out. The security officers, those security officers do nothing with the children. They're not allowed to go near them, they're not allowed to touch them. They do report, that's about it. That's their job, is to report, the 2.
Okay,
the
so there's 2 climate officers in the residence? No?
No, there's no climate officers in the residence.
Okay,
There's mental health workers in the residence.
okay. So there's 9 total security or
There's
climate?
9 total that come on, there's like 7, she said climate.
7 and 2?
And 2, and the 2 work when the kids are there,
Okay,
when the kids are in the school. Like, we don't pay somebody to come there
okay,
and no kids.
okay. Right, well, the teacher, or the other 7 are only there, well, they're there what? During the regular shifts, right? And that's usually when the kids are there, maybe an hour or 2 after?
There's some trainings they come on campus for.
Okay. So we have 9 to 200 students and 0 for residents. And Dave, counselor, was there any specification about the breakdown of per resident and then per student on security?
The only thing that the condition says is that they will maintain the same ratio of students to security personnel as they had before they admitted 9th to 12th graders.
Okay. So what do we believe that ratio is?
That ratio looks like it is 9 to 200. So if they added another,
So it's like 5%, almost. A little less than 5%.
a little less than 5,
4.5%.
right, they would have to maintain that same ratio.
4.5%. Are we all in agreement with that? Those numbers, disclosure, confirmation of numbers.
Yes, that's correct. I guess I did want to add this, that might clarify what we do at our school. So when we say we have 120 staff, we have a teacher and 2 teaching assistants for approximately every 12 students in the classrooms. So and they're children, and so when you talk about security, even when we're talking about climate officers, they are people who are trained to be highly relational. They have strong relationships with the children, and so we actually undertook to change their names from climate officer to student advisors because we're not an institution that needs officers, we're a school. But I think, so what I'm trying to say is this: we have social workers, we have counselors, we have phys ed teachers, we have art teachers, we have a full staff of people, all who have a really good relationship with our students. And all of those people participate every single day in ensuring the safety of our students. So when you say security personnel, it's a school.
Correct.
And so I just want to,
However,
I wanted to clarify that, so when we say we have 120.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I understand that when kids are in a classroom, there's at least 3 staff there. When they're in the gym class, there's a phys ed teacher.
And
if somebody
staff.
does something, they're have teachers and staff in the room with them to prevent it. However, the agreed upon condition
Correct.
talks about measures to ensure students remain on campus. And that's what the security, it uses the words additional security in a proportional number to the current security personnel. That doesn't include teachers and teaching assistants and phys ed teachers.
So
I think that's the 9 personnel.
Yes, those are the 9.
7 climate officers and the 2 external hires that are secure for security purposes only. And Mr. Aprile is asking whether what he's trying to establish the ratio now, so we can, if it's approved and that condition is added,
Yep.
that we know what the board knows what the ratio is going to be if you increase the number of students.
That's fine.
So we're all on the same page. That's all I was trying to do. We could call them climate officers or
Student advisors.
student advisors. Or the 2 people you hire, that's not a student, they're not
No,
from the
those are
student.
external contracted security officers.
Okay. So student advisors plus security officers
That's right.
is 9. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Just wanted to clarify all the numbers. You have 200, and you could add another 94 based on the residences. Based on your licensing, if you have 200 students today, your licensing goes to 350. Is that correct? And there's,
According to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, our license would go to 350 currently.
okay, and you have 56 in the residence. So that-
4.5%.
Currently.
Currently.
However, they don't all attend our school. They go to other schools during
So
the day.
does that 56 residences, do they count towards the 350? I don't know the law. I'm asking counsel.
So that condition is written, in my opinion, it could be interpreted either way. And we have interpreted that we can go up to 350 for the school.
Times.
that's the way that we read that condition based on what Ms. Morrison said, with not all of the people in the residential treatment attend the school. So my reading of that condition is that we could go up to 350 in the school, regardless of what's in the residential treatment facility.
So, based on your interpretation, we could have 350 students and 72 beds filled.
Correct.
There's only 56 beds. I'm not trying to confuse people.
I understand.
I'm trying to clarify everything.
Understood. And I apologize if this is confusing from our perspective as well.
No, I understand. As I understand it, the school is separate from the residential facility, and most of the children in the residential facility used to go to PW or schools like that. That's still the case?
No.
It's
There's
not.
some of the kids still go there,
Okay.
not all of them.
But some go to the school.
They go to our, well, go ahead.
Yeah, so when a student is admitted to our residential program, and that's not under my purview, but I understand a little bit about it, there would need to be a determination made about what the least restrictive environment is for education. And so some students do attend Colonial because they don't have the same, they may not have an IEP. And so other students may come with an IEP. Some students may have an IEP with an identification of autism. Our school does not provide services for children who are identified as with autism. So we wouldn't be able to admit that child. That child will go to a different school.
So it's unlikely that you would be adding 150 students at a gross number of 150 students at any given time, right?
So currently we have 12 students who would like to attend ninth grade. We are being very intentional because we want to have a really good program. So we don't want a giant program. We want to add 1 year at a time. So that would take care of making sure that we have the appropriate staffing for students. We want them to be successful. PD has granted us the license to provide a high school diploma. We want to make sure that if they stay with us for 4 years, that they're ready to move on to post-secondary education.
Right. Yeah, I was just asking in terms of the numbers where Mr. Aprilli was asking about, the number. If you get 350 students and you have potentially 350 students, you currently have 200. Say, you can add another 150.
The math geniuses at this end of the table have in fact taken out their
I was
calculators.
an English major, yes.
And,
It's like
and
three of us.
we have revealed that currently at 200 students with 9 security personnel, if the maximum of 350 students was met, they would need 15 and 3/4, but 16 security personnel. So that's the maximum number of security that they would be required to have under the proposed condition.
Gotcha.
If they're going to add 12 people to ninth grade, they got to
10?
add.
We currently have 12
Yeah,
students who would
12,
like
right?
to enter ninth
12
grade, and we've
applications.
already hired an additional climate officer / student advisor.
So what would that be? One person? One extra security person with 12?
That is one extra staff member, that's correct.
Okay. And I just have one more question, clarification. Age. The high schoolers can't be older than 18? Is that true?
That's incorrect. A student could be 18 in their senior year.
They can't be over 18? Did I say
Is it
18?
possible that I enter school, so my parents held me back a year in kindergarten, and that I turn 18 I turn 19 in my senior year? I think in my experience as a school administrator in public school, that can occasionally occur. You wouldn't refuse a student the right to a diploma because they were turning 19 at the end of their senior year.
But they wouldn't start their senior year if they were over 18, if they were 19 or above.
I think it is highly unlikely that would happen. I don't think I have seen that, so I would say no. But it is possible to be 18 in your senior year.
Well, Colonial will take you till you're 21, right?
If you have a special, that's a special IEP identification for students who I want to say this correctly. It's for students who need a very high degree of support, usually because they're intellectually disabled. Our students are not intellectually disabled, so they would never need that high degree of support.
Okay, so they could go to 21. I know autistic kids could go to 21 in Colonial.
Correct, and so we will only accept students that we can program for. Our students are not intellectually disabled. So when a student makes an application to our school, it comes with a psychological evaluation, and if a student has a certain IQ that would qualify them to be identified as intellectually disabled, we would not be able to program for them.
Okay, so we can have children over 18.
Yes.
And was that a stipulation, Counselor?
That was not, I don't think that was previously discussed.
Okay, because I keep hearing
That was not
at 18, well, maybe that was just from K to 12, K to 8. You couldn't go to school past 18. Or maybe that was in staying in a treatment center. Do you know, is there any limitations on age for either the treatment center or for K to 8?
Yes, there is currently a limitation on the treatment center. If a student turns 14, they look for other placement.
So
However,
anyone
if the
residing
student
at
is-
the treatment center can't be over 14 years old?
14, unless they're finishing 8th grade.
That's just that's a finding of fact,
That's
right?
correct,
That's
yeah.
not an order.
Right.
Okay, I'm just looking for what's in orders. Okay. So the treatment, and that's by Pennsylvania, your licensing, that they can only be in that treatment center until they're 14?
Our license doesn't say they only can be there until they're 14, but it does not say that. What we know, what we're good at, is the kids that are 14 and younger. We have no interest in going with older children. We had this discussion internally, and we're safe to say we're not going to have children older than 14 living there.
Living there, okay.
And they will agree, if approved, the condition will read, no student in the residential treatment program, residential, may be older than 14 years of age, unless the student's taking academic classes at an 8th grade level.
Okay.
Under no condition shall high school students be residents in the residential treatment facility.
And high school students, by law, can be there till 21, or under your licensing, no?
No.
So what's the age ceiling for your licensing?
For residential treatment?
No.
For the high
For
school?
K to 12.
Students who are seniors and age 18, they might turn 19. I'd say it's an anomaly, but I believe it has occurred in the past in
Sure,
high schools.
okay.
But we are.
But they can't go to 21 like they could do it at PW, because they have a different special need.
Exactly.
Okay. Under your licensing, which is your special need, is that under your licensing that you can?
No, it is not.
Okay.
We don't have licensing for students who are intellectually disabled. So we would never have it's called a transition program. We would never have a transition program to age 21 because we're not licensed for that identification.
So it's under your licensing. You just said it.
It is not under our licensing.
She said they don't have a license.
We don't have a
to do the
license.
transition program.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Are,
So under
are
her
we
licensing, they're
agreeing?
limited at 19.
Okay.
We're saying the same thing.
We're saying the same thing.
That's fine. Thank you. Sorry. A little thick-headed today.
I had a question.
Amy, go
Thank
ahead.
you. I had a question about transportation. Talk to us about how do these kids get to school?
Yeah,
Will they
so-
be able to drive if they're over 16?
So we haven't crossed that bridge yet because we don't have any children who are 16 and a half and able to drive. I think it's highly unlikely that we would have drivers. Our students do sometimes come far distances, but it's not a determination we have made yet. So typically, in your junior or senior year of high school, you may drive to school. I think we are a very individually based school, so we are very progressive in the sense that as our students continue to grow in the area of responsibility, we give them more opportunities. So I don't think at this juncture I could say that a priori no student will ever drive to campus. Could we have a really mature 12th grader who were doing a work-study program who would need to drive in order to complete that program? I don't want to speak to that yet because it's 4 years away from where we are right now.
Or just 2 years. I mean, 10th graders can drive at 16.
Yeah, but typically as a school, so in my experience of being a high school administrator, juniors and seniors are allowed to drive at some high schools, just seniors depending on the parking situation. So obviously schools have a lot of control over that. And again, I just would not want to stand here today and say, no, we would never allow a student to drive to campus. I think it would be a very individual decision based on where that student is and what their needs are educationally.
So there would be parameters put into place on students that were permitted to drive to school?
Of course.
And currently, is there private busing? Is it SEPTA?
So I'm actually going to ask our principal, Mr. Rafiq Williams, to come up because he is in charge of transportation. He's going to answer those questions way better than I can.
Thank you.
All of our students currently get bused in through transportation that's provided through their districts that they're coming from. So we got children coming from Philadelphia. Philadelphia provides transportation.
Excuse me, please speak up, please. I can't hear you.
Yeah,
Please speak up, please.
Thank you. Yeah, let's keep our voices up, please. Board members and witnesses, please speak right into the microphone.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Loud as you can.
Yeah, so we have children who come from the school district of Philadelphia. Philadelphia provides transportation for those particular students. We also have some students who may have come from, let's say, Ben Salem. Ben Salem will provide transportation. So depending on wherever the student comes from, that school district will provide transportation for them.
Okay. I don't have any other transportation questions. Does anyone else?
No.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I guess, would you consider any potential restrictions on the number of students who could be admitted into the high school program?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, or whoever is chooses to answer the question.
Could you repeat your question?
Yeah,
please?
would you accept any restrictions on the number of students who could be in the high school program at any one time?
That you would, a recommendation you would make regarding the number of students
Yeah.
at the high school?
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking currently, so we would probably never go beyond having approximately 35 students per grade level.
Yeah.
So again, we want a small program. We want a really good program. So we're not looking to have a giant high school. We're looking to have an effective high school. I mean, that's been our operating principle for all of our students, which is why we have such a high, I don't want to say this wrong because I think we use a different language, staff to student ratio.
How about if the program were, say, to be limited to students advancing from one grade to the next, and then from being fed up from the 8th grade program? Is that the way your incoming freshman classes, your 9th grade classes composed?
So our current 9th grade class are all students known to us who have been with us. But I mentioned least restrictive environment earlier, and so we do look to have our students transition back to their school districts.
Okay.
And that decision is made at the IEP table where there are representatives from our school, the school district, and the family of the student. And so I don't think it would be right to say we could only accept students who have been with us because part of our mission is to have students return.
Okay. And just one more question. Do you anticipate adding the 4 grades in a stepwise fashion? In other words, you're starting with 9th grade this year. Next year you would have 9th and 10th.
Exactly.
So you wouldn't cap out on total 4 grade structure until 4 years from now.
That's right.
Okay. All right, thank you. Those are all questions I have.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got to clarify this with students now. You have 200 children today. 200
Approximately. We have slightly under 200 students
Okay.
currently. But
And I think last meeting, we determined that there is no nursery school.
there is no nursery
You had an
school.
approval for a nursery school, but there is no nursery school.
That's correct.
Okay. So out of the K's not nursery school, K's kindergarten.
That's correct.
So K to 8, you have 200 students. And how many students you have in each grade?
Approximately 40, depending on the grade level. Our early elementary center, which is grades K through 3rd, currently has 18 students. The reason that is because younger students actually have a higher need for staffing. Littler children have struggled with impulse control, so we make sure, just like in a nursery school, you would have a higher teacher-to-student ratio. We follow those guidelines. By the time our students get to 4th grade, with 3 sections of 4th grade of approximately 8 to 10 students, by the time you get to 5th grade, we have approximately 40 students per grade level through 8th grade. It does fluctuate, though. Like, it is possible that we would have slightly more 5th graders one year than we might the next year.
Okay. And so what's your biggest grade? What's your biggest class?
I think it's our rising 6th graders.
Okay, so you have 40 students in 6th grade. That's one teacher and 2 assistants?
No, that's 4 classrooms with
That's 4
3
classrooms.
staff in each classroom. So 1 teacher and 2 teaching assistants.
1 teacher and 2 assistants. So that's 3.
Times 4, so 12 staff who are in direct classroom support. And then additionally, we have staff outside the classroom. So for example, we have 8 reading specialists, or 8 people in the reading department who provide specialized reading instruction. We have curriculum people who,
The reading department, they take several grades. They don't just take one grade.
yeah, they take
right?
the whole school. They work with
Okay.
the whole school. They pull out in small groups. We have a curriculum department that supports writing and mathematics needs. And then in addition to that, we have school counselors. We have occupational therapy. We have a whole staff that's designed to support that student to go back to district, which
Okay.
is our goal.
And then when you say 9 to 12, 35 students per grade, how many classrooms per grade?
That would also be approximately 4 homerooms per grade.
Okay, so does
So
that mean there are going
once
to
you
be
get to
4
high school,
grade,
you're
4
switching
homerooms for
class.
9th grade?
Yeah,
So if you had 35 students, you'd have less than 10 students in each class,
that's right.
in each grade. So you would have a teacher and 2 assistants in grades like that, or is the ratio change?
The ratio currently has not changed. The structure of a high school is different, so students are switching classes. They're going to math and science and social studies. So the ratio would stay the same, but it's not the same as a kindergarten classroom where you have 1 teacher and 2 staff who stay the whole day with the same group of children.
So the teacher and the assistant would
2 assistants.
2 assistants, when you start changing classes in 9th grade, they would follow to their specialty class, if it's math or if it's English.
No, so if you're in 9th grade, for example, 9th grade, we have an Algebra 1 course, so we would have an Algebra 1 teacher. That teacher would have a homeroom. That teacher would also have 2 teaching assistants. The students would switch classes in our hallways with our staff in the hallways to help them navigate that, because they're high schoolers, and the expectation for high schoolers is that they're able to switch classes. We do that with support, and we use a gradual release model. So as students show more responsibility, they get more privileges. But we would not have the classroom, the Algebra 1 teacher wouldn't follow those students. Our teaching assistants are highly trained. They also provide small group instruction for the students. One of the missions of the school is to make sure that our students are reading and doing math at grade level, because we find that is what gives them the highest degree of success when they return to district.
Okay. So when you start adding high school grades, how many staff are you going to add?
So for our 9th grade, we propose having 2 homeroom teachers. One would be our algebra teacher, one would be our 9th grade science teacher. We're doing theoretical physics for 9th grade. Each of those classrooms would also have 2 teaching assistants. So it would be a total of 6 staff for the 12 students.
Right, and theoretically, you could go up to 20 students, right, if you wanted to, they could handle more than 9, 12 people with
Yes.
2 homerooms and 4
Yes,
assistants.
and we could have chosen just to have one section. We could propose that and say we really are going to have one section because we could have 12 students in one section. But we are very intentional about doing this the right way. So we would prefer to have fewer students to teachers because we want them to be successful.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. I think we have to go out to the,
Well, we do. Mr. Daly and Ms. Leddick, anything else for right now? Okay, if anything occurs to any board members, please write it down, and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. Again, at this point, there's no more board questions for now. We will entertain public comment. If you wish to come forward, please do. Again, identify yourself for the record, give your address, and make sure our court reporter, Paula, has your name and last name spelled, address, and then you can make your public comment. Is there any public comment? Yes, sir. Come on down.
My name is Frank Johnson, 2685 Narcissa Road. A couple questions. From the Zoom meeting, I learned a lot, and I thought they were capping out at 250, that presently they can only rise to 250 students. Now I'm hearing it's 350. What number is it presently?
Well, I
That
will.
the school can
I'm
cap out?
I'm not going to ask the board to answer the question
Oh,
or the applicant right now. I think I would request that the
Okay.
applicant's counsel note the questions that are asked, and then when we're done public comment, maybe we can come back and hit those answers if she is of the mind.
Okay. From the Zoom meeting, I learned that the school receives children from other schools, okay, from this state and actually Delaware. Now, these are students that are what, unruly, or they disrupt other classes? Why are they sending them to your school?
Okay?
Okay, and also, it seems like the state has certain models for education. Like, I guess Catholic schools, they have first grade to 8th, and then they go to a high school, a separate school. Same with Colonial, you have a number of schools. And it's, I guess, age appropriate that they, you know. My concern is that you're going to have kindergarten to 12th grade on one campus. So very, you know, a lot of different age groups, which could be harmful.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anybody else for public comment? Yep.
Come on down.
Can I take this thing down? Ernest?
Sure.
Marty Minder, 604 Anthony Drive, Plymouth Meeting.
MENDER,
MINDER.
and the address was?
604 Anthony. Okay.
Commander.
Oh, excuse me. So I've lived for 12 years literally right behind the school. My house is directly behind the residential area. And I've witnessed multiple runaways from the school over that time frame. My neighbor himself, who couldn't make it tonight, has called 5 times, he told me, in the last year and a half. Now, in the past, none of this has been recorded by the police because we have try to be good neighbors and call the school instead. So this idea that there's nobody running away is a farce. So to me, that brings us back to security problems. The security is completely lacking. And in our neighborhood, one child went around literally smashing my mailbox a couple years back, about 3-4 years ago. The school actually offered to pay for that. I turned them down to try to, be a good neighbor once again. But this really comes down to, I bought the house knowing there was up to 8th graders back there. I was okay with that. But now you're trying to bring in possible emotionally disturbed kids that are now could be grown adults. I have 4-year-old twins that play in my backyard. I've been literally in my backyard cooking on my grill and seeing kids jump the fence and run through my neighborhood, my backyard while I'm cooking. Before I had kids. Now I have 4-year-old twins that are back there. And we're going to basically bring in older people that are more adults that instead of stealing a bike, they might be staring at my car and how to get that. This is the security issues I'm referred to and what I'm concerned about. It's nice that I have a nice backyard that I can send my kids in. But if I'm going to have teenage adults run around that could possibly be jumping that fence, that scares the hell out of me. And once again, we've never called the police. We've always called the school. Because we know they were trying to help the younger kids. And we were trying to get them to, try to find that child as they're running through the neighborhood, either breaking mailboxes or something. There's been a lot of stolen bikes in the past, from what I understand. I've never had one stolen from my house. But at the end of the day, we've always tried to be good neighbors and call them directly instead of calling the police. So now it's being used against us, and that now those records are not with the police station, they're now with the school, telling us that nobody's getting away. And that's completely wrong. The other thing I want to run by you is, a month ago we were told the objective was 30 kids per class. Tonight I'm hearing 35. So that's an exact note I had from the last meeting. So in the last month now we're looking at 5 more people per class, which now brings you up to 140 possible high school students. Okay, that's a concern to me. And one of the other things from the last meeting was, as far as kids being allowed into the school and high school, was that there would be no kids with records of adjudication. Because the specific question was, is there any violent kids coming to the school at this point? And the answer was, nobody with adjudications. And I think if you look back at the history, back in 2014, the policy was changed from the school to prison pipeline during the Obama administration to try to stop reporting of adjudications for kids that are getting violence in schools. So as far as I'm concerned, that is not a direct answer to that question. Is there violent kids coming in high school or not? Don't tell me the non-adjudication, because they're not getting adjudicated like they used to. It's that simple. So that's basically what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minder. More public comment?
Good evening. Mark Rosenberg, 603 Anthony Drive. I've been there for 28 years, and my property is contiguous to the school. I guess one of the things would be the security. And there have been a few children have climbed the fence, going over the yard. One of the things is the infrastructure. The fence between my property and the school property. I've been in there 28 years. I know I've spoke with Mr. Clark when I have a problem. He takes care of it. But I don't think that fence has ever been changed. It's been the same fence. It's rusted out. I'm sure you're aware of it. A lot of it's rusted out, and that, once again, that's a barrier that protects my property from the school. So that's one of the concerns. And I will agree with my neighbor. Once you get older kids, you get bigger children, and things can happen. And like we've had one kid came in one time and got into a car, took some change. I'm not going to call the police, something like that. And I wasn't, if I did have any problems, I did call the school, and they were responsive to them. If I would see a kid jump on the fence, never called the police. First thing I would do, I'd call the school, let them know, and they would say, we're already on it, or we're looking there. But one of the things is just the fence. Let's get that fence to be up to specifications, because 28 years is rotted out in many places. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Pastizzi. I'm at 101 Woodland Lane.
Spell your last name, please.
Pustizzi.
And address was?
101 Woodland Lane. I'm 2 doors down from Mr. Minder, again, within 200 feet of the school and treatment facility. Just a couple of words here. So I'm a real estate and zoning attorney, but I'm also a parent to 2 young boys, one of which who's a special needs child. He attends a private special needs school, so I'm very familiar with what goes into running one of these schools and dealing with children that have issues. So my heart goes out to what they do. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, this school has a number of issues. I wish that the 40-plus people that were on the last Zoom could be here today, but because we're in the middle of August, I think we're severely lacking in the turnout that we otherwise have had for the prior 2 Zoom meetings. You would have heard from a number of more neighbors talking about seeing students eloping, as we like to call it. It's escaping, going through the neighborhood, having the police sit in our neighborhood, and when you ask them why, they say another kid got out. To see the vans picking kids up randomly on Narcissa or County Line, trying to make their way to the mall, to the buses. This is a regular occurrence. This isn't just a once-in-a-blue-moon situation. And what it says to me is not that these K through 8th graders are trying to get away from the school. It's that the lack of security, as we've heard, is an issue. They put no emphasis on security today when we're talking about K through 8th grade. And if we're talking about a condition of approval keeping the same ratio of security, well, it's deficient already. So keeping the same ratio is continuing a deficiency. And add to the fact that these are now going to be 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. I'm not going to feel safe with my kids playing in the backyard unattended if this is a continued risk. So, I'd like to point out a couple of other things that were stated. Kids can go till the age of 21 under federal law if they have an IEP. So everyone should be aware of that. This is not an 18-year-old limit for a high school student. The criteria for admission to the school is emotional disturbance. Okay, we've heard that they won't take kids with intellectual disabilities, but they are required to have in the child's IEP or admission condition that they are emotionally disturbed. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that fact. Putting aside some of the emotional pieces of this, unfortunately they failed to meet the legal standards for a special exception. I'm sure the board and Mr. Sander are well aware, but to amend the existing special exception or to grant a new one requires they meet certain criteria. One of which, I'll give you some of the criteria just so you're all aware. Will the exception increase the traffic congestion? Adding high school students who can drive will add traffic. Not the most important point, but a significant matter when you're trying to establish have you met the legal standard. Will the exception be consistent with the surrounding zoning and use? No. The surrounding areas are zoned for single-family residential, not institutional high school. Will the exception affect the public health and safety? You've heard our safety concerns. I've had numerous neighbors texting me, please point out to the board our concern about these children currently escaping and what a 17, 18, 19-year-old escaping looks like. Will the exception be detrimental to the appropriate use of adjacent property? Yes. If I don't feel safe to allow my children to ride their bikes in the neighborhood, to play unattended in the backyard, then they are detrimenting my use of my property. I'd like the board to consider those facts when considering whether to grant this special exception, because legally they have not met the standard, regardless from the emotional or compelling reasons that the school may think that they are entitled to this exception. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pastizzi. Any other public comment? Sir?
How you doing? James Hurst, 3038 Warrior Road.
Spell your last name.
Hurst, H-U-R-S-T. This thing on?
Address again?
3038.
Well, there's one gentleman back there who's really happy to see you up at the podium.
That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, so my concern is safety. Simple as that, guys. It seems a lot like their ask is different from what is put on the paper. I'm concerned in 10 years from now, when these guys don't work here anymore, and they have a different shift because funding's different, and they get more for a 12th grade student than they do for a 6th grade student. So, safety. Opening a door we can't close. And maybe if the paperwork matched their ask, it might be a little bit better. But, again, safety. I have young children that back right up to the school with no fence. So, safety. Thanks.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. Oh, you're right. Thank you. And I told Dom I'd read it. We did receive one public comment by email. This is from Jeff Manning, M-A-N-N-I-N-G. Address 2772 Narcissa Road, Plymouth Township. It is dated Monday, August 16th at 5:37 p.m. to Dave Conroy, the Township Zoning Officer. It says, Mr. Conroy, I am writing this email in regards to the Plymouth Township Zoning Hearing Board scheduled for this evening, August 16th, and specifically in reference to Silver Springs Martin Luther Schools, that's apostrophe S, parens Gemma Services, closed parens, request for Plymouth Township's Zoning Board to consider allowing admittance to children in 9th through 12th grade into their school. I am unable to attend the meeting tonight in person as I am working out of town this week. I was in attendance for the July 2021 Zoning Hearing Board that was conducted via Zoom and decided to be continued due to its length of time, resuming this evening by active attendance at the Plymouth Township Building and Plymouth meeting. I was also on the call in May of 2021 when the issue was initially on the calendar and then subsequently delayed to June and finally presented in July. My name is Jeff Manning. Our family, parens wife and 2 daughters, closed parens, reside at 2772 Narcissa Road in Plymouth Township. We have been in our home since January 2014. An estimated 33% of our property line borders the Silver Spring Martin Luther Schools property. Since moving into our home, my wife and I, as well as our 2 daughters, have witnessed children leaving the property of the school, or what appears to be, quote, running away, close quote. We have witnessed school employees chasing the children. I have talked with school employees in my own driveway attempting to find children that have run from the school and are hiding in the wooded area adjacent to our house along Narcissa Road or further from the property. I have witnessed children peel a layer of clothing prior to leaving our property in hopes of, parens, what seems to be, closed parens, increasing their chance not to be noticed as coming from the school and being in disguise, parens, in my opinion, closed parens. We have witnessed a child hiding behind a bush in the backyard watching our children eat breakfast. In estimation, I have seen 12 to 24 occurrences of kids leaving the school or what appears to be running away since we moved into our home in January 2014. Those occurrences also include instances within the last 3 years. The first time I contacted the school to inquire or report a child that had been hiding in our yard, I was told to either 1, contact the school directly to report the occurrence, or 2, call 911 and report the incident. At that time, I initially called. I was also told to never, all in caps, approach a child because it was never certain what a child would say or may accuse a person of doing due to their background, upbringing, or circumstance. Safety and security is a concern of our family based on the experiences we have witnessed of children fleeing from the school. The safety and security concern is much different when considering a 6 or 7-year-old boy or girl up through 12, 13, or 14 years old in kindergarten through 8th grade versus a maturing teenage girl or boy in 9th through 12th grade, that is 15, 16, 17, 18 years old or potentially older. Ms. Siobhan Canavan from the school stated that, quote, all the children need emotional support, close quote. Mr. Dave Sander from Plymouth Township stated the older children would be much more versed in the, quote, ways of the world, close quote. That happens to be my opinion as well. Instead of an 8 and a 10-year-old peeling a layer of clothing off and hanging the clothes on a fence post and then walking down Narcissa Road away from the boundaries of the school in, quote, disguise, close quote, the 15 through 18-year-old teenager with the same emotional support needs with trauma, anxiety, or other issues in their background will be much wiser to the world and pose a much greater concern. Excuse me. I do not feel comfortable with the thought of older children being permitted to enter the school. In addition, I am aware that Gemma Services was recently formed through Silver Spring-Martin Luther School's acquisition of the Village in Philadelphia. I am also concerned that if the school is successful in increasing the age group and population of the children that attend and possibly reside at the school, will the next challenge be for the school to request the township to permit the construction of additional buildings on the property to further support the increased numbers of children in need of support? They have the land to do it. Thank you for your time and consideration. Jeff Manning, 484-343-3495. At this point, I believe that is that public comment. Ms. Fritschus, would you and or any of your witnesses like to address some of the questions that arose during public comment and or provide any additional testimony in response?
I guess the best place to start is to say that children who are admitted to the residential treatment facility have a much higher degree of need for emotional support than students who attend the school. Students who are at the residential treatment facility go through something called crisis, where their families or their home situations no longer feel that they can care for them. I think again and again we've come up against the very same issue. It is much less likely for a student from our school to want to run away because they don't live there. Students at the residential treatment facility live there, and sometimes they do elope. I was just thinking about the gentleman who said he was barbecuing when he saw a student, and the other gentleman who said over the last 7 years he's seen a certain number of students. I think very often those students are coming from the residential treatment facility. They are not our school. Additionally, younger children tend to be more impulsive. It's much more likely for a younger child out of impulsivity coming from the residential treatment facility to elope. Older children, if they don't want to come to school, they stay home. High schoolers, if they don't want to come to school, they stay home. It is highly unlikely they're going to come to our campus to run away. The other thing I want to say is our school does not accept students who have been adjudicated. We're not a school for adjudicated youth. And then the third thing I want to say is having a special needs child. Special needs children have been called many different names. A long time ago, if you were intellectually disabled, we used the R word. We no longer do. In states across this nation, we don't call students in the education world emotionally disturbed. That is Pennsylvania's identifier. Most states have changed it to emotional support. It's an old-fashioned word. And I think it is akin to using the R word. So I take exception to that. That is what the legal word is. But I think it needs to be changed, like many other terms have been changed to describe students with special needs.
I want to speak about, I've already said we have, conditions with the township we're happy to, adhere to, as well as a recommendation by the Planning Commission. But as far as the law is concerned, let's assume, which I am not willing to say that we are need to be here for a special exception approval. You heard, I know we can't remember it now, but last month I went through every single one of those criteria with our witnesses, and they testified as to why we meet those criteria. This is special exception, which means permitted use if we provide prima facie testimony that we've met that criteria. The law then switches, the burden switches to the objectors to come in and provide testimony that this use, this high school use, is over and above any other high school use, the detriment of it. There's been no traffic expert in here who testifies to what buses are coming in that makes us different than a different high school. There's been no one in here to testify that there's no other high school where kids don't skip school and go into the neighborhoods. There's been no testimony like that, and that is the testimony that any objector needs to come in and put on for this board in order for this board to deny us the special exception. Assuming that this board thinks we need a special exception, that is the evidence that needs to be provided in order for this board to legally deny the request for the special exception that we are asking for. Thank you.
Any additional board comments?
Can you just repeat what you just said, please?
Sure.
I just want to hear it one more time,
Sure.
please.
The case law is clear on a special exception approval as well as conditional use, right? Special exception is permitted use that the board, that the township says is permitted so long as we provide prima facie testimony, means my witness testify and provide evidence, which is their testimony, that we've met those criteria. I went through every single one of the criteria with Ms. Morrison at the first meeting as to why we adhere to that. The burden then shifts to an objector to not only provide opinions as to why the public health, safety, and welfare is not met or why transportation is going to be a problem. They have to bring in testimony. The case law is clear many times. It's expert testimony as to why this high school use, Martin Luther School, is over and above, is going to be so much more detrimental than any other high school use. That there's records that no other high school students are skipping school and going into neighborhoods and causing problems. That there's a transportation expert coming in, that all the buses they're going to bring in is so different than how many other buses high schools use to bus kids in. The burden shifts to objectors to prove that what we're asking for is so different than any other 9 through 12 high school.
Okay. Could you answer one question for me? What expert do you need to say that kids are running away and they're running through my backyard? What kind of expert's that?
I don't know.
Is it
I don't
not
know the
the
answer
resident?
to that. I don't know, but I would think the testimony there has to be evidence. I mean, we don't even know if the children they're talking about are from the school. I mean, remember, this application is for the school only. And what we heard from testimony at the last Zoom meeting was, the majority of the runaways that the school is aware of are from the residential treatment facility. And this application has nothing to do with the residential treatment facility. So there's been no evidence that's been brought in, number one, to show there's been X amount of, quote, runaways, and that those runaways have done damage. I'm not saying that we say that residents are being truthful, but there's been no evidence of it. There's been, from different people who've said, here's a photo of this or whatever, and there's been no confirmation that those individuals are from the school. And this application only has to do with the school.
Okay.
If you'd like, we can get evidence for as many neighbors.
Hold on. You can't just talk. You can't just talk.
Can I ask Mr. Neal a question?
Mr. Pastizzi, I will give you a chance to rebut that, but just hold on for a second, Mr. Aprile.
I only know his first name is Neal.
Mr. Clark.
I believe.
Thank you. I'm sorry. So, some of the residents had mentioned that they're either students or the residents. We don't know what they are, right? Do you know what they are? Who's running away? Have you ever had anyone run away in the last 3 years?
Absolutely.
Okay.
From the school or from the treatment center?
From both.
From both? Okay, okay.
And didn't we have testimony last month that that didn't happen in years? That hasn't happened in years from somebody? Because I wrote that down somewhere. So we do have people, children, either students or residents, running away from the school for whatever reason, okay? And trust me, I know wholeheartedly that these are good educators here. But there's a limit of how do you keep health and safety throughout the residential area in addition to the school. And maybe we don't have experts testifying, but it seems like there's a problem, and your own witness collaborated with that. So how could this be mitigated?
I don't work in a residence, but we're very responsive when we get police involved. And we do have reports, I mean, we have the records from the police, so we know how many people were reported running away. So we have that. And then there's other times the kids run away. If they're just running around on the campus, we don't call the police. We have an app on our phones that's called Share 911 where we can text that out to people, and people really move pretty quickly to get the kids. So that's how we do it internally. And if a child goes off the campus for any length of time, I think it's out of sight, then the police are immediately called.
So there has been police reports?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, because I didn't think there was any evidence.
Well, but made by whom? We heard a neighbor testify that, being a good neighbor, he didn't call the police, he called the school. But now we're hearing from Mr. Clark that the school makes police reports when there is an elopement.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is it 50-50 students and residents trying to run away, or is it more residents or more students? Where do you plug the hole? How do you
Okay,
stop
I have
it?
the totals. How's that?
Okay, great.
So in 2020, there was one runaway reported from the school. 2020.
From the school?
Yep. That was on
When you say reported, does that mean to the police?
police.
Plymouth
during
Township
school
Police.
hours. During school hours.
Okay.
And that was February 18, 2020.
Well, they're only there during school hours, right?
No, I mean the
Students are only there during
students.
school
And,
hours.
well, you said how many runaways? There's residential treatment program and there's students.
Okay.
We want to know how many students from the school ran away.
Okay.
Right? Just students from the school. So is that one in 2020?
No, I'm looking for both. You know, I guess, Counselor, are we looking at this as a school, a treatment facility, or a combination?
The application is limited to the school. They are seeking to have 9th to 12th graders attend the school. It's separate from the residential treatment facility.
Okay. Okay, I'm just. So the fact that there's a problem with the residential treatment center means nothing here?
Does the school, does Gemma Services operate the residential treatment center?
Yes.
Okay.
But the use that we're asking for. other than
Understood,
competition-
understood, but it's the same campus, it's the same property. They're two, one is an educational use, is the other one a residential use? Is it an institutional use? I'm talking about the residential treatment facility.
It's a residential use. I think they're on the campus by special exception. I think it's zoned R1 there.
Okay, but they're allowed to be on there and maintain
right.
the residential treatment facility
That's right.
as a special exception on the same property
That's
as
right.
the school. Okay. I think the board understands that the relief being sought is for the school.
Mm-hmm.
But taking into consideration the property, I don't think it's outside the board's ambit to examine what impact the addition of 9th through 12th graders will have at the school on problems that exist with regard to the residential treatment facility. I think the board understands, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Clark, that these 9th through 12th graders are not staying at the residential treatment facility. They will not live there. They will attend school, they will go back to their homes, and they're not adding anybody to the residential treatment center.
They will be on the campus from 8 in the morning or 8:30 till 3. That's it.
The students.
Correct.
Proposed students, okay. But we do have what sounds like a problem with the residential treatment center. And I guess the question, it may be as simple as, would the applicant agree to a condition or conditions dealing with security at the residential treatment center as part of relief that the board may grant for the school, because they're both run by JAMA Services and they're both located on the same property? If you want to talk about that, or I think that may be where the board is going. Amy.
I mean, it sounds like you have a very good tracking system, so I'd like to know how many students elope each year from the school.
From the school.
From the school.
Not the treatment center.
Well, I'm going to ask that too.
Okay.
I mean, I'm curious, now
Okay.
that we're talking about, so how many students get out of the school and elope into the neighborhoods, or just exit the school during school hours when they should be in school?
Okay, so in 2020, there was one school, and there was 3 additional residential treatment. 2020.
In
That was
2020,
an off
only
year, though.
one student left the school
The school-
premises.
Well, remember, you're in the middle of COVID, too. Yeah. So, I mean,
Okay.
the school was closed
Okay.
for most of the time.
So only one. And
yeah.
did you say the police were called?
Oh, absolutely. This is the police reports. Yeah, I have them all.
Okay, how about 2019?
Total 2 from the school.
So in 2019, 2 eloped and the police were called.
Yes. From the school.
Did any elope where the police weren't called? Or are the police called every time a student leaves school?
My understanding is with residential treatment in the schools that if they lose sight of the child on the campus, they call the police. Because we're required to do that.
It doesn't sound from what our neighbors have witnessed and shared with us that it seems to me that there's been more than 1 or 2 students that have.
But this is the school, not the residential
Right.
treatment. So the residential treatment, there were more.
Okay.
In 2019, how many residential treatment elopements were there?
12.
Okay.
In 2020, you said there were 2?
How about 2018?
Yeah, 2020 there was 2, but that was only a short year.
Right.
Right. One from the school, 3 from residential treatment. Total 4.
3, I'm sorry.
So in 2019, there were 14 total.
– 2018, there were 7 from the school.
And how many from the treatment center? Treatment facility?
10.
I thought somebody testified last month that there was none.
Mm-hmm.
Who testified to that? Do we know who testified that there were no?
Well,
And I have one other question while you're looking for that, if I can. If a student is adjudicated, they're not accepted into the school. If they are a student and that happens, will they be expelled?
We can't actually expel students. It's an IEP decision, and we would reach out to the LEA and request a different placement for that student.
So the answer is that they were adjudicated delinquent, they would not be allowed to be in school, correct?
That's correct. So we actually did have a student, who was admitted. We found out that there was an adjudication. We are fortunate because currently we have a virtual program due to COVID, partial virtual program, and so we immediately placed her in that virtual program.
Okay.
Off campus.
There was testimony from Mr. Williams at the last hearing. He said prior to his commencing as principal, the elopement level was high. He said the elopement level / restraints is way down. Since COVID, 0 kids off the ground. Now, there was part of 2020 that was pre-COVID, and it was pre-COVID because it was February of 2020. So, Mr. Williams' testimony is not contradictory to the police reports that the school has entered into evidence, just FYI for the board.
Okay.
I did have another question. One gentleman, maybe Mr. Minder, had raised that I have a note too. Last month, there was a statement that they were anticipated no more than about 30 students per class, and then in this hearing, the max might be 35 per class. So that is a discrepancy.
I think I've always said between 30 and 40 students. I think that was specifically asked of me, and somebody said that could be up to 120 students. I believe that was discussed.
Yeah, I don't know. My note says anticipate 30 students per grade.
Okay. It just changed. That's
Yeah.
It's 35 now.
I
It's
also had a
35,
discrepancy.
I think I said approximately, in all fairness, but
I also had a
It's very
discrepancy.
important
What's an
to the
anticipate,
people
which is
here.
approximate, yeah. Anyway.
A discrepancy between last hearing, at 2 different times, I noted that there were 10 ninth graders admitted for the 21-22 school year, and tonight I'm hearing 12 a couple times.
Yeah, that's true.
I think I said approximately. I do, because it's, is it 9, is it 11, is it 12? It's approximately 10.
Well, there could have been 2.
There have not been any more admissions since we last spoke.
Yeah, I had 10 also.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to have it straight because I've got to make findings of fact, and if there's conflicting testimony, that's difficult. 12.
There are 12 ninth graders.
For school year 2021 to 2022.
For this upcoming school year, 21-22.
And did we answer all the questions? How many students can you have? I think that answer is 350, but I'll defer to you.
Yes, 350. I apologize for not answering that one. It was 350. I think the 250 number that the gentleman is referencing is in the decision of the number of residential treatment we can have. We're not going to have 250, but I think that's where the 250 number comes from.
My understanding is residential treatment max is 72 beds
Correct.
per Mr. Clark, and now 350 students. Where I was confused was I thought 350 was the total of both, and it's not. Right? That's correct, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and then why are sending students to this school? Why are the other schools sending students to this school?
Sure. So
That was Mr. Johnson's question.
Yeah. The students who are placed at our school are placed because their emotional support needs exceed the capacity of the public schools who are sending them.
I missed that. They're what?
They exceed the capacity. So a public school...
What exceeds the capacity?
Their emotional support needs. Yeah.
Emotional support needs. Okay, that's the key phrase.
So a typical public school doesn't have the ratio of having approximately 10 students in a classroom with 3 staff members.
Can I ask you a question, just
Sure.
to follow up on that? If someone has a reading disability and is placed in an IEP, are they eligible to go to your school?
No.
Multiple runaways, jumping the fence. How high is the fence? I didn't even know there was a fence. I see 4-foot shrubs. Is there a fence around the school?
We're referring specifically to Mr. Rosenberg's comments.
Yes, there's a fence that borders his property.
Would the applicant agree to replace that with a new fence?
Absolutely. That's not a problem.
How high is the fence?
You can hardly see it for all the bushes. So Mark probably knows better than I. How high is the fence?
6 feet, I would think. It's standard fence, whatever the standard.
So
Chain link
the township says 6 feet for the fence?
Okay, 6 feet. It would be 6 feet. 6 feet's the max without zoning relief. Thank you.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Just follow up, is there any fencing currently on the Warrior Road side?
No, there's no fencing there. Some of the neighbors have fences.
Right.
Yeah, on their side, but there's none on our side.
No, that goes to Mr. Hurst's question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did we answer all the questions that were brought up?
I think there was a question regarding how schools are graded. So that, for example, the comment I believe was Catholic schools are typically 1st to 8th grade. How could you have a K-12 school? Let's say across the nation, there are many configurations for schools. So, for example, Germantown Academy, all of the Friends schools, Gwinnett Mercy K-12 schools. It is one configuration. On our campus, we have 3 different buildings for those grade levels, primary center and intermediate center, and what we hope to be a junior high school center.
Mr. Pastisi, did you want to follow up on your prior public comment?
Thank you. Just a couple of quick comments in response. In my 15 years of being a zoning attorney representing applicants all over Montgomery County, Philadelphia, other associated counties, I've never once not reached out to the near neighbors before a variance or special exception request. It's shocking to me that this group didn't do that with our neighbors, and I think you'll see why. Because they didn't want people to know that this was happening, frankly. They didn't want the neighborhood to come out and have discussion and raise the issues that we're raising today. So I'll just put that out there. The other point here, I think, is that you have to view the treatment center and the school in the same light because they're the same property, the same ownership, same oversight. And frankly, the fact that they have no security, as they stated earlier today, at the treatment facility is shocking. It's negligent, it's malfeasance. It's amazing to me that they've never had security at the facility that has had, double digits elopers over the last 3 years, each year. What it shows is a pattern of not caring about the security of the people that are on their campus or the people that live adjacent to it in the neighborhood, in your township. So this is a pattern. And to think that that's going to change by adding high school students into the mix is unfathomable. So, and to the point about the prima facie, case made by the applicant, we did overcome their statements leading to the safety and welfare of the neighborhood, because I have, with us here today, there's 5. If it came down to it, we could get you signatures from 20 additional neighbors to the fact that they've seen students running through the neighborhood, escapees.
Do you have it here tonight?
No,
Okay.
as part of the,
Okay.
which is fine. So thank you again for allowing me to.
Do you know whether they were from the school or from the treatment center?
I have no way of knowing that, but I will say, though, as you heard from the neighbors over here, that they haven't called the police every time you see someone running through the neighborhood because, you know what, if it's a 10-year-old kid, okay. It's not as scary as an 18-year-old. So those numbers that were given, I didn't see any evidence of what those numbers were or how they were documented, and those were only related to police calls. How about all of the other incidents that weren't reported to the police on the part of us as neighbors being good neighbors, trying to do something to not get a kid, arrested by a cop who's emotionally disturbed already or has emotional support needs? Where's our consideration in the inverse? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stacey. Okay, any rebuttal? Mrs. Morrison?
Yes, I would like Ms. Canavan to come forward. She has some information regarding the issue of security at RT. So before we move forward further, I think she'll help us understand that better.
So Ms. Canavan?
Siobhan Canavan. S-I-O-B-H-A-N. Canavan, C-A-N-A-V-A-N.
Ms. Canavan has been previously sworn. Yep.
So there's two different regulations. So the school is a regulation under PDE. Residential treatment facilities and like hospitals and mental health, that is all different regulations. So I think some of the security concerns that were brought up regarding the residential treatment, they have regulations that they have to follow. I'm not sure what their security is, but there's different rules that they have to abide to versus the school has to abide by. So we can't speak to why there's no security. I can't confidently say, but I assume there is something in the regulations regarding the staffing and the security down there.
Oh, are you with Gemma Services?
Yes, I am.
Ms. Canavan? Gemma Services operates both uses.
Yes.
The school and the treatment facility.
But I work directly in the school.
You work with
yes.
the school, so there's nobody here from Gemma who specializes in the treatment facility?
There's no one here that specializes in the residential treatment program now.
Okay. Okay. Anything further from the board? Anything further from the applicant? They're in conference. There they are.
I mean, we don't have anyone here from residential treatment, but obviously, we think we've been a partner with the township in the past through all these years. If there's a concern about the residential treatment facility and security, I mean, I think the impression is that these kids live there and there's no one overseeing. I don't think that's the case. I don't know the regulations, but we're happy to have a discussion with the appropriate person with the township from the residential treatment facility following this hearing about, if there's, I don't want to say put a condition on as to security for the residential treatment facility because we don't know what, by law can and can't be done, but we're obviously happy to talk to the township if the township think there's a current concern, if the residents think there's a concern. I think the good thing is in the numbers that you heard, it's gone down over the years. But we're happy to have a conversation with the township, even though we don't have the right person here to talk to residential treatment because that wasn't a part of the relief we're asking for. But we're obviously happy to have that discussion after the hearing.
Okay.
I have one question.
Sure,
We're
Bill.
talking about additional security, and there's, what's it, 0.045?
4.5%.
4.5% security per student. And in light of what we heard today, and it sounds like the problem is more on the residential treatment side, but there's definitely a problem on the school side to some degree, to a lesser degree. And I think the main concern with the residents is by having older kids come in, you're going to magnify the issue on the school side. And my question to you is, what could you do to prevent that, and what fixes can you agree to so that the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders Don't elope. Zero tolerance.
I'm not sure what you're asking me to say.
What policies and procedures can you put in place? And is it more than 0.45 or 0.045, whatever, 4.5% security for the high school kids that you want to bring in here? So that they don't try to, I mean, you could start a softball league and everybody wants to stay because they want to play, okay? I don't know what your school's like. If it's all learning and books and all of that, I'd run away too once in a while. All I'm trying to say is the older they are, the concerns that I'm hearing today is you're bringing in older kids, and now it's 140 kids, potentially, okay? We got to look at potentially what you could do. You're only bringing in 9 now or 12 now, but you won't agree to limit it, right? So we got to look at it. You're going to bring in 140 9th to 12th graders, and 4.5% increase in security is not going to prevent some of those kids from leaving. And they could be, they could create more harm than what's been happening over the years. Because it's been younger kids, maybe it's been lessened. I don't really know. But it sounds like that's the main concern, and I'm asking you what you could do in that defense.
So what you're asking is, could we have, and I think we're getting very, I understand the concept of security because our neighbors want to feel secure. I think, and I tried to explain this before, and I will answer your question, but each of the 120 staff we have in place make sure our students are safe and keep a very careful eye on our students. And so I think the same thing also happens at the residential treatment facility. I am not an expert on that program. It is very well staffed as well. Their staffing is probably higher than ours when you look at a student to staff ratio. And every single adult who is working there works on behalf of student security and safety. So it's not like we have, when you say, we need more security people, that it's just, that's one singular job. It is all of our jobs every day. And I include myself in that. So I think that does matter. Could we have, is there a way where we could add an additional student advisor in 9th grade so that we would have, just for 9th grade, 2 student advisors? We could. If that would be an additional staff. So we could do that. We've worked really, really hard to make sure that our students, and by the way, we do a lot of fun things. I meant to say this earlier. Please follow us on Instagram because you can see pictures all the time. We had a summer program. We had close to 200 students for 5 weeks. We played flag football. We had a water slide. We had an ice cream truck. The topic was Guinness Book of World Records. We tried to break some records. We did some reading. We did some math. We tried to have a really comprehensive program. During that time, to my knowledge, 1 student left the campus. It was a residential treatment student. So we work all the time to make sure that our students are safe, well cared for, and being educated in an appropriate way. If you believe that having an 8th student advisor, a 9th student advisor,
Mrs. Morrison, my question is this, and you just said that your job is to make sure your students are safe. So how are you going to make sure your students are safe when you find them in somebody's backyard while the guy's having a barbecue with his little girls and he wants to defend his children?
But
how are you going to make sure that child is safe?
And I do understand that. I also have children, and where I live, I have a halfway house in sight. And so I'm aware, and I believe very strongly personally that people have to live somewhere. And I appreciate what the neighbors said, that they want to support our kids because they understand that they are high needs kids who also need a place to go. I would say barbecuing does occur after school hours, and I do sincerely believe that our school students are less likely to elope because of the nature of the school. They don't live there, so they can. And there are students sometimes who do elope. But we're aware very, very quickly. We have direct eye on all of our students with multiple eyes on them all day long. But they are students who sometimes do elope. They do run away. That can occur. Can I stand here and say that will never occur? I can't do that.
No, I'm asking you what preventive measures you could add to. I mean, with COVID, with people teleworking all the time, barbecues are at lunchtime now. Barbecues are not at night. I mean, let's just get to the chasing. What could you add to the factor here to satisfy some people's curiosity about what's going to happen when older kids are in the school and they start eloping? Because it's going to happen. It might be one kid, it might be 10 kids. We don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah, so we probably could do some. I mean, look, this is these are the problems of practice we talk about every day at our school. So we are always looking to improve in every way to make sure that all of our students are safe and continue to grow. We probably, for our high school students, for example, if you're going to even think about eloping, probably you're not coming back to school for the next couple of days. Right, so I think that the consequences for a 7-year-old who elopes are different than when you're in high school. So, and I think as students are older, they also are required to have more responsibility. So that's one way, for example, that we probably will and already are looking to make sure that that does not occur.
Okay.
She testified or the witness testified?
Sure.
I know, that's not our problem.
Yeah, I have an idea.
Is it possible to maybe, and I don't know if this is a different way to address the concern, but I think we're all thinking in hypothetical terms when these kids come on campus. If the board would want to add a condition, can we do it if there's, a problem, then we add students or a staff member or something like that instead of trying to anticipate that there would be a problem?
It's kind of closing the barn door after the
Problem happens, I mean, why would you do that?
Everybody's going to call the cops then.
Sounds like the zoning hearing board is looking for something tangible
Yeah.
to better protect the neighbors from elopements, which we know happen.
Yeah, so, for example, would having an additional student advisor so you have a percentage that you've calculated? What's an acceptable percentage of student advisors for our school?
Well, you have 7.
We currently have 7. That's right.
7 plus 2.
Plus 2 externals.
That's right.
Where do the 2 externals post, or where are they posted?
Yeah. One of them is posted at the Hess Center, which is our biggest building, and the other one drives around the campus in a car.
Okay. Might it help if there were a few more of those folks?
They don't have student contact. They're there to protect
Understood.
our campus.
But if there's more people driving around observing, wouldn't that, by definition, help in prevent elopements?
No, I think actually having more staff to work directly with students is better than having somebody driving around in a car. Yeah.
That's your
It's less
view.
of a police state. It's more of...
But the student advisors in the
Right, and they can have more interaction with the student before the student, because my understanding is that security they just drive, but they can't really.
Yeah, they don't. So they're hands off. Our security doesn't have any contact with students. If we have any contact with students, it's our staff who's having contact with students.
I'm just curious, are there surveillance cameras around the
Yes,
school?
of course. In every hallway, outside.
So does one of these 2 security guys look at surveillance all day long?
No. The security guys don't have
So
access
it's
to
not
ours.
live
That's an
TV,
internal,
like they
so
can
if something
see?
occurs at our school, that's an internal view that we would have, just like at any school in public or private. So typically, like if an investigation has to happen, something
So
gets
it's not
stolen, the
real-time
assistant principal
surveillance.
would, or the principal or dean of students would review the tapes,
There's
not
not a
the
control
security
center or
officer.
anything where someone's sitting and looking.
But if there is a certain percentage of student advisors that might help, what would that be?
It's your school.
Yeah, I'd like to see your proposal.
Well, you've said you could add another student advisor
Yes.
for ninth grade only.
We could do that, absolutely.
Is that each class or just the whole ninth grade?
Well, currently we have, for the 12 students, we have 6 adults. So that would be the homeroom teacher plus the 2 teaching assistants in each classroom, plus there is a student advisor in that hallway, so that's 7 adults. Plus we have a social worker and a counselor who would split their time between 8th and 9th grade. So, but we could add, but that would be 8 adults for 12 students. Typically, as students get older, they become more self-regulated and require less, not more, but I understand the concern.
Okay. Can we have 5 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you want to close the hearing and deliberate on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Is there any other testimony that we need to receive in this matter?
Oh yeah, I wanted to say this. You asked about our program. Please follow us, and I'm saying this to the community too. We're on Instagram, and I'm saying this wholeheartedly because sometimes if you can see what's happening, then it does pull away the shroud of like what we do. It's Martin_Luther_school. We're also on Facebook. We post several times a week all the activities the kids are doing, the kind of work we are doing. It might help to get to know us a little bit from a different perspective. And also, I just wanted to say this, I do appreciate the benevolence and well wishes of all of the neighbors in the past. And I hope we can move forward in a positive way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a comment about the cameras. You asked if it's real time. So when the children leave the school, they go back to the residence, there is real-time cameras. There's something called an executive on duty, and they watch them from 3 o'clock until 9 o'clock in the morning, where the children live and then the driveways on campus. I mean, they have huge screens in front of them with every pictures of everything. So they see if something's going to happen. And
But that hasn't stopped elopements from the treatment center.
It doesn't stop them?
It doesn't stop elopements. It hasn't stopped elopements from the treatment center.
It certainly has helped.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Mr. Minder, did you have last comment, and then we'll close it up?
One of the things that I brought up earlier, was I keep hearing no students have been adjudicated, but I think there's a big difference between adjudicated and possible violent backgrounds.
Okay.
So I still haven't heard a clarification about that. I keep hearing none have been adjudicated, but is there violent backgrounds that have been approved in the school? Because I've seen the violence literally in my own mailbox, et cetera. That's what I
Understood.
want to see if I can clarify that.
Thank you, Mr. Minder. I think there was testimony at the last hearing that violence in a potential student's past eliminated the student from being admitted, but why doesn't the applicant correct me if I'm wrong there? I remember there was talk at the last hearing about violent pasts and the admissions process.
So I might need Allison's help here, but by violent, how are we defining that? Students who have been adjudicated for violence?
Well, the point is that there may be violence in the past, but they have not been adjudicated.
Could somebody please define violence for me?
I think the question when you do admissions process, there's something new about it. There's been anything in their track record of a criminal history or something.
Of a criminal history. That's not what you're...
Violence.
You can't talk to the audience.
Well, there has to be, hold on. Mr. Minder.
Sorry.
No. There has to be some kind of way to determine that. And the way to determine that is some kind of record, some kind of police record, or how do you know if somebody slapped somebody when they were 7 years old? I mean, violence runs the gamut.
If kids get in a fight in the schoolyard, they're not adjudicated.
Right.
That's violence, right?
Yeah, it happens at every school in the country.
There's an example.
Yes,
Okay.
we have violent children at our school. If the definition is they're getting into a fight in the schoolyard, yes.
Thank you.
If the definition is that they have a violently criminal record, the answer is no.
Thank you very much for that clarification. All right. I think we're going to deliberate at this point, so the board will take a recess as it deems appropriate. Thank you.
So they ordered a pizza, and my 22-year-old promptly got shut up and all the orders in the parking lot. So I come home and he's like pacing and stuff, and he's just saying, I said, what were you doing at pizza class? He said, well, you're walking butter. And I was like, well, they're like perfect. Today, the reason I didn't eat earlier was because the insurance people said they should have just eaten everything and just said, I went to the fitness center or something. So I was hoping we could get it fixed. And so I was like, came in, I was like, the bags off of it, and I'm going to pick it up tomorrow. Obviously, I don't want to minute, he's been driving it if it's not. I mean, I thought it was okay. Well, she luckily took full responsibility because the 22-year-old he didn't want to upset her because she was so he didn't call her house. And then she wouldn't let him take a picture of her insurance card because her address was on it. And so I said, well, that's why I called her out, because then she gives all the information to the police. So when he came home, the phone actually jumped around and said, oh, you screwed up. Yeah, you're going to be in charge of the accident. Because he said, she said. So that's when he said he thought I was running after her. And so, but she had front end damage. She took her out the side of his car. So I think what happened is when she drove in, instead of getting the brake, she hit the gas and just took out the side of the car. So we both have safety, and she called it. She accepts the fault. So it's not getting charged. It's played off. It's not even hard enough. So, but yeah, I agree. He was believing, but I told him that it was hard. So right. I'm not getting it. I'm 22. This is his second car accident. He's on his fourth car. What is it? Yeah, but they're good cars, yeah. Is that an SUV or is it for now, he just, I'll drive him to work and then he get dropped off. Yeah, sure. He did, and then I thought Right, and then we'll have grasses kind of in and out there too. Because when you drive by, we redid all the landscaping and, right, we're tying all that and then inside, we would do all the lobbies and cars and stuff. Yeah, it's gonna be beautiful. Right here. Well, that's good because in our world, no, they usually do it really. I think it's next year's vacation. Did you go to it? Like our first text, she's like, September 10th to 17th. What year? She's like, you know, because it could be this year. She's
Everyone will be out of sec. Sorry for everyone waiting. It's important. It's important.
You okay with? You sure? What's that? We're gonna try to do a couple of them at least. We gotta get through them. Like, just with vacations and stuff, it's like it's not fair to the applicants and stuff. I mean, I already asked 2 applicants that were here tonight to continue from last month, to put them on tonight. Everyone needs to stop asking for zoning relief. That's the issue. Yeah, true. Ed, I don't want to hear it. I don't know what we're doing. You guys definitely want to go tonight, right? We have 3 residential homes that should go just like they should. No, I think it should be just someone from Brandywine. It's something so simple. So, and yours is pretty slick. Once we get through this, it's hopefully an hour through everything. So this shouldn't have gone this long. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. I've had plenty of discussions. Let's leave it at that. We'll get to you. We'll get to you. Like I just want to clear our zoning slate tonight. Whether if we're here till midnight, I just want to do it. But it's up to everyone else. Right here. Just be happy no one's opposing your application. You don't want it? So you take the easy ones that you know are slam dunk. What's that? Well, you get certain people with you, you can be competitive. Have you talked to Joe? I'm just curious. Just the last interactions I had with him was like very combative. And I'm like, Joe, I've been working with you for like a dozen years now. Yeah. What did we were arguing over some stupid little 2-lot subdivision, Belleville. And he just I was like, really? Yeah. Are they coming in to see it? It was probably okay. It was probably I think the big hang up is the driveway and whether the driveway can support 80,000 pounds and all that stuff. Because it's a long driveway. But he had some fire code issues he had to deal with. What's that? Right, stuff like that. Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's why you had the guy from Kinley. But yeah, I think who was I talking to? Oh no, it wasn't your project. I was going to say the Powell property might be ready next month. I don't think it's going to be ready yet. I was thinking of something else. This is the longest 5 minutes I've been a part of. Right. Yeah, isn't he's a solicitor over there? Yeah. We're redoing the entire township building, so I think they're just marking it for when they tear it all up in a month or two. I'm moving over to the community center. So I think our meetings for a while are going to be over there. I think over in the community center. Yeah. So we were told to clear out our offices by the end of this month, but I think I got pushed back 1 month, which is great because my office is a mess. Yes. What's wrong with the building? So, yeah.
Were they gonna do this renovating, like?
Yeah, pretty much. A little bit, like making it look more modern, I guess. Like this, instead of us sitting up on a stage like this in here, they're just going to make it all one level, which would be nice. So I don't feel like I'm looking down on people. But yeah, make our offices a little bit bigger and modern. Like I had a pipe burst in my office a couple of years ago. It was like a waterfall in my office.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So hopefully within the next few months they'll start here. So. I don't even know, to be honest with you. Probably a year or so. They're trying to do it in stages from what I'm hearing. So I think there'll be a certain, like the administrative side will be here while us in code enforcement will be at the community center and then switch, something like that. I don't know. I'm on a need-to-know basis, and basically they don't tell me anything. What's that? Right. Yeah, I don't know where in the community center, but somewhere. But next month will definitely be here. Yeah, it'll definitely, yeah. At least September, we're still in here.
We have 2 September, Monday and Tuesday.
Right, and they're both in here. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, hey. Hi, how are you? Good, how are you? I apologize for your waiting this up. I mean, yours is a very easy, and we had to get this one first because the residents were out. Yeah. I thought we would be done hopefully in an hour. Right. I'm doing it. And I'm not gonna ask you to continue again. You already did that last month, and I don't want to push you. That's why I told everyone, I'm like, I want to get through the entire agenda tonight. But once we get through this, I don't see the other applications being anything major. And you're not last, so be happy about that. I got it. Thanks, I appreciate it. I wish on the Zoom meeting, I wish you could just focus in on one box. Oh, I do. Teach you how to do that. Hey, I gotta move it, man.
the bathroom.
He'll be back. He'll be here in a few. You just bio break. He's not hiding behind his mask.
Okay. Oh, very good.
We need him. Yeah, you guys really should have shown up like now.
We should have had you call us.
You're right.
What's worse? That's
No one
more
answers the
important.
phone. I fell asleep.
Not easy, man. Tough decisions. What's going on? Come on now. What do we, I missed the call.
They're going to do final wrap up, and public comment.
Wait, shouldn't Dom be holding that?
Final wrap up, final wrap up.
I agree, yeah. But
Public comment can either be
You are
nobody
correct.
shows up or the whole world shows up.
Oh, we didn't even get to that yet.
Could be one more public comment option, all for.
We can't limit
I'm not
this
gabbling,
thing,
he's
right?
not here.
You guys have they've advertised it, it's kind of stuck.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to read this thing to the applicant or believers. Like golf fencers.
Number proportional to the number of current security personnel to current students as to the additional students proposed to be replaced. The additional students are going to be the high school students. That's already required to meet it proportionally, which is that 0.45%. How is the one additional student for 20 high school students?
In a class, not.
No.
It's
You
not
said
in a
one
class.
additional student advisor for every 20.
Up to every 20. So you have a student advisor in each high school class dedicated to the high school class.
Reset 20 years.
It's not per class. It's per students in high school.
See, this is security measures, security in a number proportional. They're saying security is everybody who's in there. We are saying, I'm going to read that condition because the township only agreed to not oppose if that condition was imposed. But I'm also going to read the condition that says one additional student advisor
20 high school students.
Up to every 20 high school students per class.
It's not per class. It's high school students total.
I mean, high school students per class.
Per high school.
No, per grade.
Because
Per grade.
No,
It's
high
not
school
per
students is
grade.
9 feet tall. High school students is already 9 feet
It's
tall.
not per grade because there's only 12.
I'm already picturing
That's right now. They could do
Four
30.
Roses bottle right now.
Oh,
They can go
It's like right in front of me.
up to 35 per grade.
right.
Then you would need two.
And then they need two. For every
How they
20
gonna need
high
two?
school students or part thereof.
Right. If you
So
go
the
up to
second they
20,
go over 21, they have to hire a second.
Right.
That's the or part
But
thereof.
that's, yeah, so if they're 15 and 9th grade,
and that's 5%. I know. 4.5.
It's like an art bar.
It's a higher
See,
percent.
that's what I'm saying. They're going to get a mix signal about how many people based on the condition they agreed to.
Let's say, in addition to this requirement, they have to hire a security officer for each high school grade
student advisor.
up to 20
Student advisor.
up to 20 each in each grade. If it's over 20, it's 2 advisors. You know what I mean? If they do 35, they got to have 2 advisors for the grade.
No, I don't agree with that.
One
You don't agree with me?
One additional student advisor
You don't agree with me?
for every 20 high school students or part thereof.
Per grade. High school students per grade.
That's not what we agreed.
High school grade.
That's not what we said. That's pretty cool.
I had that in mind.
Okay, so let me ask you, how do we collar them?
20 high school students or 20.
Don't look at me.
20 high school students or 20 high school students.
You're saying it's 10 in 9th grade and 9 in 10th grade, you need 2.
This has been on record for the past
I think
half an hour too. I mean,
That's
stop.
Okay, we can do it that way. We can do it your way.
So we'll say
In addition,
That's what we talked about in the.
in addition to the other
That's what we talked about. Let's ask Brian. That's how I understood.
Brian.
We have a,
Well, I'd say I make a motion and then Dave reads it.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll frame the motion.
make sure that you understood things as I did.
They all get approved. Because they sat through this.
Exactly.
There's no internet here unless you put it on your phone. I don't have the password. Well, I just did the unsecured one.
I think there is internet here. I don't know.
Yeah, there's unsecured. We're still confused about the number of people, because they don't know the number of people.
Test.
Yeah, we're just going to go through these other 5.
We're gonna try.
I say approve all of them.
Just do a massive
Drop the gavel. 5 for $1. Bam.
You want to do that?
I would.
That's point.
It's the chair's.
Are we ready? But don't ask the last 2 questions.
I think so.
I never asked you that.
No brainer.
All right. Mr. Freely, Mr. Chairman, back to order. Let the record reflect that the zoning hearing board deliberated on the application of Silver Spring Martin Luther School, Gemma Services, and I would like to frame a motion and see if anybody wishes to make that motion. It would be a motion to deny the appeal from the zoning officer's determination and a motion to deny the request to amend a prior special exception. However, it would be a motion to grant a special exception to allow students in grades 9 through 12 to attend the Martin Luther School, subject to the following conditions. First, that no student in the residential treatment program may be older than 14 years of age unless a student is taking academic classes at an 8th grade level. Under no condition shall high school students be residents in the residential treatment facility. 2, applicant will put measures in place to ensure students remain on campus and provide additional security in a number proportional to the number of current security personnel to current students as to the additional students proposed to be on campus. 3, the applicant shall comply with all prior zoning hearing board decision conditions not otherwise revised by this current decision. Number 4, the applicant shall engage the township in discussions regarding security issues to prevent further elopements from the treatment center. 5, the applicant shall replace the Rosenberg the fence along Mr. Rosenberg's property line with a new 6-foot fence. And finally, that the applicant will hire 1 additional student advisor for every 20 high school students, that's grades 9 through 12, or part thereof. In addition, the standard conditions that the applicant will operate the use in substantial compliance with the evidence and testimony presented and will obtain all applicable permits and approvals required from agencies having jurisdiction over the use. Is there such a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. I'll take a roll call vote. Ms. Leddick?
In favor?
Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Aprile?
In favor.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you all very much.
The next matter on the agenda is 725 Rennell Road. Mr. Sander?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, guys.
The next application is the application of Mary, next word Ann, A-N-N, middle initial S, last name Pietro, P-I-E-T-R-O. It's either Coupe or Coupe, I don't know. Coupe, C-O-U-P-E. This is an application for a variance from section 1908G1 of the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance to allow a detached garage to be located, a detached garage that is located closer than 10 feet from the rearmost portion of the house to be located 2 feet from the side property line where a minimum of 4 feet is required. The address is at 725 Rennell Road in the B residential zoning district.
Ms. Coop, you want to be sworn in?
Mary Ann S. Pietro.
Would you please tell the board what it is you'd like to do?
Well, I had a garage there, and I'm putting another garage in the original, in the same footprint as the old garage. I had it taken down a few years back because it was falling down. So I had it taken down, and I just was a little slow in reconstructing the garage. So I'm just putting a new one up exactly where it is.
The exact same size as the one that had
Yeah.
been there years ago?
Yeah, 11 by 22, 23.6.
Well, hold on, so nobody else can say anything. I have, in the application, it says 11 feet 3 inches by 22 feet.
Yeah, I made a mistake there. I think the original was 23.6.
Well, give me both dimensions so we know.
What's that?
I need both dimensions.
Plan says 23.6.
That's that long side is 23.6.
Yeah.
And it's
And
11
is it 11 feet 3 inches by 23 feet 6 inches?
I think it's
Actually, it's an even 11 feet. I made a
Okay.
mistake on that. I apologize.
Okay, 11 feet by 23 feet 6 inches?
By 23 is basically what it is.
23 feet
23.6.
6 inches.
Thank you.
23 feet 6 inches according to your plan.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay.
Sorry. My typo.
We have to get it right just so that,
Yeah,
you know,
I
when you
understand.
build it, the folks who are inspecting it know what it's supposed to look like.
Mr. Daly, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, ma'am. How much space will there be between, or is there between the house and the garage? I know it's less than 10 feet from the rear of the structure, but, how far back from the house is the garage?
It's where the original garage, it's in the same exact footprint as the original garage. And I was going to have it reconstructed, and it took me a little extra time to get it going, get the project going.
So basically the owner of the prior garage was basically subject to the same...
I've lived there since 1976.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's yours. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's always been in the same spot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, the footers are there, it's been dug, and the same exact footers are there that we used.
Okay. I guess it meets the height requirements for garages. What's that? The height of the garage is about 12 feet.
It's a one-car garage, Mr. Daly. I'm trying to see if I can see this.
Yeah, I've seen it. I just...
Do you have the height, Mr. Conroy?
8 and
I think it's 12 feet. But it complies with the code.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Actually, I mean, we got the building permits already.
Okay, sure. You said you have an electrical plan. What connections do you intend, like a garage door opener and light?
I'm sorry, I can't hear
You
you.
had an electrical plan. There was mention of it. What connections do you intend, like a garage door opener and light and so on?
Yeah.
Okay, nothing much more than that.
No, a couple outlets inside.
Okay.
And the lighting, the outside, 2 outside
Oh,
lights.
okay, yeah. And neighbors okay with it?
Yeah.
Cool. No more questions, thank you.
Mr. Aprile?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Raimondo?
No questions, thank you.
The chair has no questions. Any questions, Mr. Conroy?
No, all right.
Mr. Sanders?
No, sir.
Do we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to grant the variance, ordinance number 342, section 1908.g.1, to allow the detached garage closer than 10 feet from the rearmost portion of the house, 2 feet from the side property line, where a minimum of 4 is required.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Aprile?
In favor.
Mr. Raimondo?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Good luck with the new garage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
patience today.
appreciate it.
827 Plymouth Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application of Philip M. Mandrack, M-A-N-D-R-A-C-K, for a variance from Section 1909E of the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance. This is to allow a fence within a front yard at 827 Plymouth Road in the B residential zoning district.
Yes.
You are, your name?
Philip Mandrack, 827 Plymouth Road, Plymouth Meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Mandrack, please explain to the board and the public what you would like to see after that public comment.
What I'm trying to do is, I have an aluminum fence up now that borders the middle school football field, which I put up 4 years ago because they tore their fence down and refused to put up a new one. So what I'm trying to do is just enclose the one side of my home from Maplewood Avenue so I can park my car in the back driveway and have a gate for the back driveway to my shed, and also for our dog. I want to let the dog out without on the leash because we have to walk her. So I just wanted to put the fence up and on the one side of the house there.
Is this up on the screen? On the
Yeah,
screen?
yeah.
So I just have a question. Does the fence then basically end at the front of the house? Is it shown on your, did you see the drawing?
Yes.
So the
It's
fence
not-
really doesn't come up to Plymouth Road?
Oh, no, not at all. It actually stops short of the front of the house by about 5.5 feet.
Right.
If you see there's a little bump out, that's the chimney
Okay.
on the
I
side
see,
of the
I see.
home.
There it is, yeah. So basically, it's enclosing your backyard?
Exactly.
Is this a proposed fence, or did you build it already?
Oh, no, I didn't put it up yet.
Okay, this is new.
Now, I do have a fence up where the school had their fence. I just, before they tore that down, I had to put something up because the people just,
They walk over the...
oh my.
No, I know.
Yeah, they walk on it, whatever.
I understand,
It's a
but I've
whole
been there
lot.
with the middle school the track meets, and you're basically, they walk through Maplewood, off of Maplewood, and then to get to
They
the...
come and get a drink out of the hose.
No, I
mean, it's just, it's not really a lot of fun.
Understood.
So I'm trying to I just want to get a little, I don't even like fences, but it's got to help with the privacy a little bit, because since they put the new school back together, it's going to be a madhouse again.
Just one question, what kind of fence?
Pardon?
What type of fence?
Oh, it's a black 5-foot aluminum,
With
2 rail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See through it? You see through the fence?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Daly, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mandrack, would you see any anticipated effect on, like, driver sight lines on Plymouth or Maplewood? Didn't look like there would be.
No, sir, not at all, because it's way back off of Plymouth Road.
Yeah.
And it's 28 feet off center line.
Yeah.
And I have 8.5 feet from the face of curve to the fence. So yes, I mean, no, it's like.
Yeah, yeah, I've taken a look at the property, and where does the fencing terminate? Will it terminate like back where that aluminum fence is? Because I know you have a shed on your property.
Yeah, if you'll see, the back corner stops, and then the return is going to come up to the side of the house. The shed is not on this. When I had it surveyed, the shed was not there.
Right, okay.
But there is, you saw the fence that was existing.
Yes.
I'm just going to attach right to that.
Okay.
And run it straight up along the house
Okay.
to the side door.
Okay. Any issues from your from neighbors or anything? Or concerns?
They've been asking me when I'm going to get it finished. But no, I have no.
Okay.
Everybody's been very
great.
amenable.
No further questions. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Aprile?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Armando?
No questions.
I have no questions. Mr. Conroy?
Just a clarification. I know a couple people looked at this application in the code enforcement department. Just with this sketch, it's not going to be in the right-of-way, right? You're not putting the fence in the right-of-way of the street. It's going to be onto your property, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
By 8.5
just need that
by
clarification.
8.5 feet.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Just with this sketch, it kind of looked a little misleading.
8.5 feet or 8.5 inches?
8.5 feet.
8.5 feet.
I'm 8.5 feet off the face of curb.
Okay.
Yeah, which should be fine.
28 feet off the center line of Maplewood Avenue. So even when they blow the snow over, it's not going to, I didn't want them to hit the fence, because that's where they blow all the snow.
So you're saying if they do hit your fence, you can't complain?
I won't complain.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
They hit my mailbox every year.
I'm just kidding.
No questions.
Is there anybody in the public who would like to comment on this application? Seeing none, do we have a motion on this application?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we grant the variance from ordinance number 342, section 1909.e, to allow a fence within the front yard setback.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Aprile?
In favor.
Mr. Ramondo?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Have a great
Thanks for your
Have a
patience.
good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
2101 Sierra Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application of Charles and Andrea Swan, 2101 Sierra Road, Plymouth Meeting, for relief from Section 702F as in Frank and 702G of the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance, as well as Section 1910.F as in Frank, .2, to request 38% impervious coverage where a maximum of 35% is allowed, to allow 62% green space where a minimum of 65% is required, and to allow a swimming pool side yard setback of 5 feet where a minimum of 10 feet is required. This property is Zone C, Residential Zoning District.
Okay.
Charles Swan, S-W-A-N.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you might be able to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Mr. Swan, tell the board and the public what you'd like to do.
So I'm requesting permission to put in a 20-foot diameter, 54-inch deep above-ground pool. The reason I'm requesting the variance for the property line setback is our side yard. I believe I attached a picture of the plan shows that there's an easement sidewalk that runs between my yard and my neighbor's yard, and it connects the Harmonville Fire Company property with the neighborhood, which used to be a school a long time ago. So from the center line of the sidewalk, 10 feet on either side of the sidewalk is the township easement. So my initial request was going to be to put the pool right up against the property line, but after talking to the people in the office here, I didn't think that would have been a good idea, so I pushed it over to 5 feet. And there's also a picture, I kind of spray painted lines on the ground, I don't know if you have that, that kind of shows the fence, which I replaced. It was an existing fence. It's right up against the sidewalk, so that's actually in the easement. It was a fence that was there before I moved in. I just replaced it before I knew that the property line was actually 10 feet in from the sidewalk. So shows the property line where I'd like to put the pool. It would actually be about 13 feet from the fence. And then the impervious cover is obviously 3% over what's permitted at 35%.
And I guess you also have a lot that's like a pie-shaped lot.
Yes.
So, you know,
Gotta be regular.
you know, it's a regular shaped lot, so, you know, if you had a rectangular lot, you probably wouldn't be asking for a variance because you wouldn't be getting narrow as you get into the back. So, you know, you're a little bit different than most of the lots in the neighborhood, from what I can tell.
On the curve there. And they have these walkways and easements throughout the neighborhood, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Nice feature to have.
Yeah, right. So, Mr. Daly, do you have any questions?
Just any concerns, issues from your neighbors, Mr. Thorne?
No, I haven't heard from anybody. Actually, they can't wait till, hopefully it's in and they can come swimming.
Okay, well, it's a nice looking easement, actually. I mean, you know,
Yeah, put a gate, put an extra gate in.
Yeah, I have no further questions, thank you.
Mr. Aprile?
5 feet. The area where the pool's going is all fenced in. I see a fence here.
Yes, there's a
Fenced in.
fence. There's one section of the yard that the fence needs to be replaced, but it's over by the driveway side. But the rest of the fence is all at least 4 feet tall.
Okay. And then the Harmonville fire, that front's on Butler Pike, right?
Yes,
Do people use that walkway?
they do.
Okay.
People, Carriage Hill Apartments is right next to the firehouse. People walk their dogs through. Kids play out in the fields in the neighborhood.
And that'll be, the fence will be on the pool side of the easement, right? For safety?
Yes, well, the fence is between the pool and the walkway, yes.
Okay. No more questions, thank you.
Mr. Armando?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, I have no further questions. Mr. Conroy?
I have nothing.
Mr. Sander?
No questions, sir.
Is there anybody from the public who'd like to comment on this application? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Now, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to grant the variance from ordinance 342, section 702.f, 702.g, and section 1910.f.2 to allow 38% impervious coverage, or 35 is allowed, 62% green space where 65 is required, and to allow a swimming pool within 5 feet where a minimum of 10 is required.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Aprile?
In favor?
Mr. Ramondo?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Good luck. It looks like a nice addition to your house.
Thank you, Mr. Thorne.
600 West Germantown Pike.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application of PMDI Signs Incorporated for property owned by Brandywine Operating Partnership LP. This is for a variance, I'm sorry, I misread that. This is for a special exception pursuant to section 1602.1, capital D as in dog, of the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance to allow 168.4 square feet of identification signage where a maximum of 100 square feet is allowed. This property is located at 600 West Germantown Pike in the Planned Office Park zoning district.
And who are you tonight?
Okay, Philip Dubroff with PMDI Signs, 10 Council Rock Drive, Ivy Land, PA 18974.
Do you have a letter or some authorization from the owner?
Yeah, is there something from
Yeah, we
Brandywine?
submitted that with the
Let's
application.
check it out.
And the owners are...
I don't see it in our file. Maybe Mr. Conroy has it.
No, we... I submitted it with everything on...
Can really pay the question now is.
Director of Construction.
The owners signed the application. You guys...
Yes, we're here by the way as well. Brandywine employees.
Ah,
Oh, that's what I was asking.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, well, hold on. Now, but you've spoken and we need to get you on the record. So why don't you come up and identify yourself for the record and get sworn in along with Mr. Dubrow.
I probably will screw up talking into the microphone. My name is Richard Schimpf, employee with Brandywine.
Spell your last name?
Last name?
Yeah.
It's S-C-H-I, M as in Mary, P as in Peter, F as in Frank. It's a tough one.
I'm going to swear.
Phil Dubrow, D-U-B-R-O-F-F.
Raise your right hand, please. Raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you give in this matter is the truth and the truth,
Yes.
Now tell us what you want to do.
Okay, so what we'd like to do is create a more visible sign for the property, so it's easier to see it off the street. So what we did was create something with a little bit more artistic elements to it, decorative elements with these rods going up. They're not rods, I mean, they're shapes of aluminum. And so that is actually what is creating the 168 square feet, because in the ordinance you say you go for the outermost points. All right. So on the drawings, I think it's the next. Yeah, on that drawing actually, there's two dashed lines. So the outermost one, which is per the ordinance, is 168 square feet. No question about that. But if we take the outermost part of the signs, that actually is 131 square feet. And for just interest, I created drawings this afternoon, and I took just the graphic area. Now, I've been doing it for a long time, so I'm just saying just for interest, when I put a rectangle just around the area that has the text, okay, it actually goes down to 93.5 square feet. So, now, the important part, one of the elements, the design elements of this sign, is that I didn't want everything lit up. If you're going to do something, the size of the Plymouth meeting panel looks large. It is, in a way. But the only thing that is illuminated is the Plymouth meeting and the executive campus on that. Now, to define it, to go even a step further, the Plymouth meeting letters are what we call a reverse channel. So they have a halo light. So they're not even a direct light. It's creating a halo around them, and then the shadow, because the letter is solid and dimensional, you read it as a halo.
What do you call that? Reverse what?
It's called it's a reverse channel, meaning that the face is solid and returns. So when you see normal signs like in shopping centers, that's a channel letter with face illumination. Okay. Now the executive campus, those letters are actually cut out of the background and pushed through plastic, acrylic, with a light blue face. So now you have a little bit of an edge protruding, but only those letters are illuminated. So it's pretty subtle. But the purpose of doing that is because I wanted the white background to create the contrast. So to me, less is more. We don't have to blast it. What we needed was to get the name up in the air. We needed to, let me just talk about illumination. So now the DoubleTree Suites in the Courtyard by Marriott, that is up higher than you can see from the other one, so it's visible, but only those letters are lit. Okay, so it's a solid background. And then the Brandywine logo is only lit and cut out of the background. Okay, and only that area is lit. So even though this looks like a very large sign, the amount of it that's lit is actually really small compared to the square footage. So, so these elements, one of it's inspired, when you drive along the road, if you're going to the Poconos or anywhere where there's trees, you see growth, and the trees are growing at different angles and things like that. This is a reference to that. What we're also doing is, because Brandywine was re-landscaping the property, we're planting some of the same grasses in and around the sign, so as they grow in, they just encapsulate the sign. okay? But we go to the functionality of the sign because it has the contrast between the letters and the white background. You have the functionality of the sign. Makes it easier for people to come. You're not looking for it. You know, these current signs, although they were nice originally, you know, just as with all of us, or I'll speak for myself, I get older, you know, you just need something more effective, okay? We want to get a little bit more excitement, but not go overboard. The intent is to keep it lower key, but really effective, okay? So that's the whole intent with this design. It's a little bit interesting. It's, you know, it advertises, it performs all of the functions of the property needs. It gets the hotels identified, it gets the site identified. You can get your sense of arrival much easier when you're on Germantown Pike. I mean, it's a pretty strong, you know, it's a busy street. And you don't have to work that hard to see where it is. So that's the intent behind it. We'll remove the other sign and, you know, grade around it. And that's it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, and yet the way we're doing it is a little bit more artistic, interesting, and it goes with the environment. And because it's 50 years in the industry and graduating from Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, studying sculpture, these other elements in it make it a little bit more interesting. So that's the purpose of the size. The calculation on the outer perimeter of those elements is 168, but the actual lit area of the sign is fairly small compared to the size.
And this is the primary sign at Germantown Pike and Hickory Road as you drive.
Yes, sir.
So this will be what announces, hey, we're here at the
And
campus.
You know, it's set back, so you don't have to worry about a site triangle issue. Right. I mean, everything about it is considered.
Right.
So it's very deliberate, actually.
And the other two signs you just included to let us know you're making other sign changes?
Yeah, and they're all in compliance with the existing sizes. Actually, should I mention the other sign? Yes, so everything is within size, okay? On this other sign on Walton Road, all we're doing is refacing that. Okay, not even the entire sign, actually the entire sign. We'll keep the aluminum structure, but the elements we're changing to make the colors go with.
So you're not really,
No.
you're just keeping the same exact sign,
Yes.
just updating the way that it reads.
The outside, right.
On the one on Hickory Road itself where you pull in, you're just going to update the sign to make it sort of conform to the one on
Right.
Germantown Pike. Okay. Mr. Daly, do you have any questions?
Just the expansion of the square footage applies then only to sign A, correct?
Yes, that's right.
No further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Aprile?
No questions.
Mr. Raimondo?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Conway?
No more questions.
Mr. Sanders?
The sign is going to include, it's going to be the big white rectangle. It says Plymouth Meeting Executive Campus. It's going to be the blue Doubletree Suites Courtyard by Marriott.
Yes, sir.
It's going to be the other rectangle that says Brandywine Realty Trust. And it's also going to be those olive, tan, blue, and white stick-like things that look like skis or something.
Tree branches.
Limbs.
Tree
Right.
branches or
Right.
sticking up behind it. That's part of the sign.
Actually, it isn't. I mean, it's part of.
Is the sign attached to that?
They will be attached to a
Okay.
few of those.
A
but
few
not
of
all
those,
them.
but not all.
Okay, because those smaller ones aren't enough to hold it. This is, we work really closely with our engineer, and so probably the outermost ones, like even the ones holding up the Brandywine, the right-hand corner of the large one will have a larger post that's set in concrete, and those are attached.
Yeah.
So,
Here's to
yes.
No further questions, thank you.
That zoning officer's a real stickler.
Is there anybody from the public who has any comment on this application?
Oh, before we ask that, what's the height of the sign?
It's 14'9", so it's half of what is allowed.
Okay.
14
That's-
foot, sorry.
Yeah, I see that, but I would have said it's probably closer to 20 feet, based on that 6-foot person. But that's from the ground to the very top
Of those
tree.
limbs. Yeah, exactly.
Limbs.
Yes, exactly.
Skis.
Whereas the sign is actually lower than that.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Thank you. No further questions.
And again, is there any public comment? Seeing none, do we have a motion on this application?
I'll make a motion to grant a special exception from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended, Article 16, Section 1602.1.d, to allow 168.4 square feet of identification signage where a maximum of 100 square feet is allowed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Aprile?
In favor.
Mr. Armando?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Thank you. The signs look nice. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
107 Ridge Pike.
I know you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application of Eric G. Flaxman. I'm going to take this off. Eric G. Flaxman, Flaxman. Craig Flaxman, Craig Flaxman. Brian, Brian Flaxman, and Karen L. Poe, Poe. This is for variances from Section 702F and 702G of the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance to enlarge a parking area by 7,843 square feet, to allow 54.3% impervious coverage, or a maximum of 35% is allowed, and to allow 45.7% green space, or a minimum of 65% is required. This property is at 107 Ridge Pike in the C residential and commercial zoning districts. Mr. Hughes is here. Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Do you want to continue after waiting this long?
Oh, really? Yeah, you want to?
Large scale plan. People you can read it.
Thank you, sir.
Is this different than what was in the package?
Thank you.
No?
Let's stay on the close. Do we have any?
Second, that last motion.
Thank you,
Brian.
Good evening, Ed Hughes, representing the applicants. We're on property at 107 Ridge Pike. Split zone, C commercial and C residential at the rear. Proposed to put some outside seating in during this COVID period of time to stay competitive with other restaurants in the vicinity. Requires additional parking, so we're going to enlarge the parking area in the C residential district by about 7,800 square feet. We're actually going to clean up the parking area, make it more accessible, more better circulation, put some planted islands in the middle of it instead of just a big field of asphalt. So we need a variance to exceed the impervious coverage limitation in the C residential district. I have two witnesses, Craig Flaxman and Mike Valco, our engineer.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Hughes, I think the board would appreciate if you could tell us what these witnesses would testify to if you gave them a question and answer, then call them and ask them if they agree with your testimony, just to sort of speed things up. Is there anybody else here tonight that has any interest in this application? Yes, you do.
Yes.
Hi. Are you with the applicant?
I'm a neighbor.
You're a neighbor. Okay. Well, I want you. Yeah. All right. I want you to. I don't know if you're in favor or opposed.
favor with some caveats.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll definitely have a chance to make public comment at the end, but listen to the presentation and see if some of your questions might be answered.
Okay, so I handed out an exhibit packet. Exhibit A1 is the deed representing ownership of the property by the applicant. Exhibit A2 is assessor's property records confirming the ownership of the property, the square footage, frontage on Ridge Pike. A3 is an aerial photograph from the Google mapping, shows the property in question. The red dot is 108 Key Street. That's not involved in this application. We had previously received subdivision approval along Key Street to divide that C commercial part of that property into C residential portion of that property into 3 residential lots. One is the existing house at 108 Kirk Street, and then 2 additional lots, which we're constructing new single-family dwellings on as we speak. It shows the existing parking area, Fingers, Wings, and Things, parking area, Domino's Pizza Takeout, and the existing parking, which is partially in the C commercial, partially in the C residential. Exhibit A4 is our zoning plan, sketch plan prepared by our engineer. It shows in the gray area the portion of the parking lot with new construction. The dark line through the middle of the page is the zoning district boundary line, C commercial to the top, C residential below. It shows the 3 lots fronting on Key Street. It shows the addition of 19 parking spaces, 7,800 square feet of new impervious blacktop for the parking area, proposed rain gardens and stormwater management facilities. A5 is a zoning petition which shows the developer who's developing 100 and 104 Key Street being in favor of the application. My client also had the petition signed by, looks like 1131 Ridge Pike, Primo Hoagies, they signed. 117 West Ridge Pike, a share happening, they're the commercial facilities on Ridge Pike. 112 Key Street, 108 Key Street, and 1842 Butler Pike. I only have one copy of that, but I'll hand out. Davis.
Thanks. Call that Exhibit A7.
But that's just a continuation of Exhibit A5.
Oh, okay.
And then A6 is our professional engineer's CV.
Yes, all that.
So, because of the split zoning on the property and the current configuration, existing parking area, we think a variance would be appropriate to allow us to have the outside seating area. I think it's 387 square feet of additional outdoor seating area. There's an existing deck there now. If we have patrons on the existing deck, and the new deck would be 18 parking spaces. 16 parking spaces, we're proposing 19 just to round off the renovation and remodeling of the parking area as shown on Exhibit A4. And we'll have the next step, if we get approval, would be going through the land development approval. Unless we get a waiver, which is unlikely for land development approval, we'll have to counsel with our stormwater management facility, et cetera. We are intending to pipe the water down into through an easement and a pipe down to the storm sewer system in Key Street after being retained in the stormwater facilities on site.
You can't hear?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Where's the water going? Where will it go? I can't hear. No, I understand.
We have to control the rate of runoff to the pre-existing level with regard to the new 7,800 square feet of parking area and 19 new parking spaces.
So I guess when I look at this, I see 2 rain gardens, proposed stormwater management facility coming in an area where you probably don't have anything right now.
No, the parking lot just runs right off right now.
Right, so this is probably an improvement as to what
Yes.
you already have. Even though you're increasing the impervious coverage, you're also adding stormwater management where none exists.
Right, we're going to do some stormwater management where none exists now.
Right, that's what I thought. So, that's how I looked at it, and you're only adding a tiny little outdoor 387 square foot, outdoor seating deck, so it's not a lot.
Right.
So,
But if you use that one parking space for 50 square feet of patron area, that's where we end up with
right.
the requirement of 16 if we use the existing deck area for patron seating.
And I just wanted to say, in 2010, I was on the board, and they came in and took away all the parking spaces around Ridge Pike, and that was a vast improvement as to what had been there, because I thought that was a terribly dangerous way to park. And
there's also going to, we believe, at some point widening, of course, the frontage on Ridge Pike. That's going to eliminate some of this frontage, whatever's in the front now, even down the street to the to the west.
Could you repeat that? They're going to widen Ridge Pike in that location?
I believe so.
Another lane?
I'm not sure what the configuration is. I believe so.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But, yeah, it was supposed to be done about 10 years ago.
But I think overall, when you look at, yes, you're increasing 7,800 square feet of asphalt, but you're adding in the stormwater management where you have none, so you should be improving the conditions of the runoff that exists now. I mean, that's, unless I'm missing something.
And when we had the 3-lot subdivision approved, of course, the frontage, we did reserve on the far lot on the right an easement. Now we're going to put a pipe in there to capture the runoff water.
Right.
Underground.
Okay.
Is that in the plan?
Yeah, it's right here.
Correct. It's right here.
That's where the stormwater.
And then he's going to put a pipe underground?
Yeah. First, it sits in the stormwater management area, and then whatever's up there goes down to the pipe.
Okay.
So. Okay. Do you want to call your witnesses?
Witnesses in? Say your name.
Name's Craig Flaxman.
Michael Boker. B-O-W-K-E-R.
Yes. You guys heard my summary of what you would testify to and went through the exhibit?
Yes.
All the testify you would agree with what I said and repeat that?
Absolutely.
I did.
Any questions, Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just the proposed rain garden and the stormwater management facility, those are all part of this proposed redevelopment or expansion of the parking lot, like happening. That's not like the second phase it's going to be.
Correct. Yeah, there's always been water issues. And
Okay.
We went to all the neighbors, and that's what we're dealing with.
Okay, yeah, and I know you're going to be putting in a new deck. That will be in the area that's already labeled, like with the FWOT sign and whatnot?
No. It's there's already a deck.
Right, yeah.
It's just expanding it a
Okay.
little bit, yes.
Okay. That's, those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Mr. Aprilli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So currently, you're required to have, I just had that in front of me. Parking. They're required to have 179 spaces, and you have 90. And with the deck, that's the only thing that's new. You're going up to 187 required spaces, and you're adding 23 or 19 spaces. You're adding 19 more?
Yes.
You must be losing something there, because you go up to 113. That's 23 spaces to the plus, isn't it? You have 90, you're adding 19, that's 99. That's 109, but you're showing 113. What is
I would
it?
like to clarify the parking numbers.
Sure.
There are actually 92 spaces exist on the site today. We will add 19. That'll take us up to 111 spaces.
Okay, so this plan's a little... Okay.
I noticed a math discrepancy between the planning agency notes and...
Yes,
and
I
this.
apologize for that.
That's all right.
Those are the correct numbers.
No more questions, thank you.
Armando.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Conroy.
Nothing further, thank you.
No questions.
Do you have any public comment? Come on up. Yeah. State your name and address.
Kylie, K-I-L-E-Y, Shetler, S-H-E-T-L-E-R, 1832 Butler Pike, Conshohocken. So my comments are as follows. My husband Matthew spoke to Mr. Craig Flaxman on March 30th, 2021 about this project, and they had a verbal discussion, and we understand the need for the changes to the parking lot, and we are okay with the business improving their property. However, we did have a few concerns that we asked Mr. Flaxman to consider with this project that still stand. The drainage issue was our biggest problem. Obviously, we just discussed that. It sounds like it's being addressed properly, where the runoff will be on Key Street via an underground pipe, where there previously was no drainage. Our property faces Butler Pike, so the back of my property is diagonal to the parking lot. So currently, I can see the stakes where the new parking lot will be. So our main concern was just that there be proper drainage and grading for the addition, because as recently as the last few months, the runoff would come down to the side of our home where our patio is. We just recently had our patio replaced to solve part of that problem.
Where's your house?
So it sounds like...
Can you just tell us where your house is, like on the plan? Do you see the plan up on the screen?
Yeah, the picture. So my house is 1832 Butler Pike. It faces Butler. So I am, if you look at the Google picture, there's 1828 at the very bottom to the right of the word Google. That's the corner of Keys and Butler. I am one house in, 1832.
Which side of Key?
Right, Dave just put a box on it.
I think somewhere right around here.
The front of my property faces Butler Pike, right next to the stoplight.
Right, because Butler Pike's right over here.
I can't read that.
Well, this address is
I'm assuming it's somewhere.
Yeah, the more you zoom, the more blurry it gets.
I'm assuming where that box
So I'm
is.
looking
It's
at
roughly
this.
this spot.
What was your address again?
1832.
1832. Oh, you're way down. She's down here.
You said you were you're not the corner lot.
I'm not
on
the corner
Keys.
lot, I'm one in.
Right.
But you're pretty far down.
Well, it says Helen Barbier. Betsy Santora, am I on the right?
I'm sorry.
It's right around here.
Why doesn't it show up on this plan?
It doesn't have an address.
It
but
shows
here you see
in
the-
what was provided, I got a copy of what you all have just now. In the color picture, if you go to Exhibit 3, the color pullout,
Here,
You go
I
to
see
the-
you're right down here. 1832.
1832, yeah, I'm right there.
Yeah,
That's me.
sorry.
Go ahead, sorry about that.
Okay. So the first issue was the drainage, and that seems to be being addressed in the current application. So we just wanted to get that on record that was our main concern, because the water would come to the side of our property where the patio is. And then the second concern relates to safety and privacy. So we would like to have a solid privacy fence installed with this project, both at the rear and the sides of the new lot. Basically, we would not like to see the cars. If we can see the cars, they can see us. Our whole back side of our property faces that area, so wouldn't terribly want people to see us coming and going. You're trying to enjoy your outdoor space. Wouldn't want people sitting in their cars looking at you. So both for obviously visual concerns and also auditory concerns, just for noise. It would create a noise barrier if there was a privacy fence there. And the kind of a side issue with that is patrons tend to cut through the empty lot behind us that eventually will have a property on it, but they do cut through our yard to access the restaurant. So the privacy fence would deter traffic from going across the residential areas, and it would kind of force everybody to use the proper sidewalks and go around to Ridge, so that we could divert traffic properly and not have anybody traipsing through residential zones. And those are our current issues with the current project.
Maybe, I just wanted to ask you a question first, Mr. Hughes. I'm looking at where your house is, and it looks as though you're still pretty far away from even the expanded parking lot. I mean,
I can see the stakes. They've been staking. We can see them from our driveway.
But is that staking the property line, which does come back to you, or where the cars are? Because there's a pretty significant distance where they're going to have the stormwater management back there. Or is that the stake because they're going to subdivide the other lot?
Well, so there's two sets of stakes where I can currently see. They did start digging the new lot today, so I can see they've dug the dirt for the new lot for the house or whatever's going to go there, the residential area. But then there's another set of stakes that I can see that's not the backyard, that's not the property line of the residential area. There's another set, so that's got to be. That parking lot property butts right up to that new residential area that's going to be there. So if I look out the back of my house and I look that way, I can see it.
Because I'm looking at this, and it looks to me like somebody like 1848 would be much more impacted by the parking. The house, couple houses down from when I look at Google Earth and I look at the survey, it just strikes me that you're pretty far down. And 1842 and 1848 would be much more impacted by the new parking than you in terms of cars and lights and that kind of thing. I do understand and appreciate your concern. I'm not making light of it. I'm just looking at, and the other thing that I don't see is elevations and that kind of thing. Maybe Mr. Hughes can talk to this as well, but just my concerns, and I understand your concerns, and maybe Mr. Hughes can talk about that a little bit.
There's an existing gravel driveway you can see on the plan. It goes into the property also owned by the Flaxman family.
Right.
Yes. Right. Our neighbors are 1842, and that's the other property. Right.
This is your lot. This is the back of the property. The parking is way up here. We're pretty far removed from your lot line. This one shows.
Mr. Bowker, maybe you could show the zoning hearing board what you're pointing to, since they're the ones going to make the decision.
Just to clarify, I think you're seeing it on the aerial as well. They are the second property in from Key Street. And she did confirm that would be her lot, which is located below even the line that will separate the residential lots and our lot, and even further removed from the edge of our parking, which is 1.5 lots, or at least one whole lot removed from hers.
Right, that's why I was saying, I think that's 1848, that's right next to the new lot. I could understand if 1848 said, hey, I don't like this because you're going to have cars shining their headlights in my backyard. I can appreciate that. But when I see it, I don't know which direction that is, but you're you're south of where the parking area is. That's why I'm looking at it. I understand there's stakes out there, but they're also doing a bunch of work, not just building a house. They're going to add in the stormwater management. They're going to do the drain line there. So that could be what the stakes are. I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying that's what it could be. Because to me, the parking, I don't know how far, Mr. Bowker, it is from her lot, but the parking there, maybe you can tell us so we can see distance-wise? Understood.
We're getting a new building.
It's 45, 50 feet at least from that back property line.
I mean, do you understand what I'm seeing?
I understand. I can appreciate.
It's a long way from your house, I guess.
I can appreciate that, but I can also appreciate that the folks at 1848 probably
they're not here.
Probably right, but I just want to make sure that this isn't something that affects.
I don't want to have a negative impact
either.
on you. I understand,
Right.
And I do appreciate that.
We don't have
looking
a
at
forest
it
separating us and the
You
commercial
seem pretty far away,
properties.
but, you know, the Flaxmans and Mr. Hughes can talk to you about the fence issue and that
Well,
kind of stuff.
and I just wanted to reiterate something that my husband and Mr. Flaxman had already discussed verbally. So I know he did send a letter to all the neighbors letting them, know what his plans were and discuss any concerns with each household. So
Right.
I just wanted to reiterate that here in this forum.
Sure, so you guys can talk while you're here, too.
And just to clarify, when they do go through the land development process, in that land development, subdivision land development ordinance, there is a requirement for buffering and berming a parking area adjacent to residential houses. So there will be new trees and berming going in, so the lights of the cars won't be shining onto your property and stuff like that.
Well, this was a subdivision from 2010, and part of that subdivision approval deferred the installation of a buffer along the back of those lots on Key Street. It also included the obligation to put a stockade fence in.
Okay.
Now, we can't go all the way across because we'll have to deal with the township and the storm easement, but we intend to put a lot of trees back here.
Okay.
And if we can, we'll just run the stockade fence across.
Okay.
And sometimes you can't put a fence in an easement, but if you get a waiver of damage or something, you probably know how to do that. And then this driveway will be eliminated, so that.
Right. We
People
knew.
won't be.
Yep, we knew that would be eliminated, and the new one's going to go
Won't
here
be
for that property.
Induced to walk up to get to the back. And then whether they will put something
There's always open space that people would cut through to avoid having to walk up the ridge cut. Now there's going to be two houses and fences and stormwater management, so nobody should be cutting through anymore because you're going through people's neighborhood.
Fine. Thank you, Mr. Flaxman. All right. Did I ask for a question?
No.
Okay. Mr. Daly, do you have any questions?
No further questions.
Mr. Aprile?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Ramondo?
Just to clarify, currently there was a bunch of trees there looking from that Google map. So those trees are gone now?
You're still there now.
Oh, but they're eventually going to be gone?
Well, because I think we were talking about, we would expand the parking lot. So
Right.
Some of the trees will be,
And then you're going to put new ones up?
yes,
And to create that buffer from the neighbors and all the headlights and all that stuff?
absolutely.
Is that, Ms. Is it Shetman?
Shetler,
Shetler, does that satisfy your concerns?
as long as there's privacy and the water does not go on my
No
property.
water, no headlights, right? No cut-throughs?
No cut, there's no people
And
looking
that'll
at me
make
from
you
their
happy?
cars.
And you guys are willing to address those issues?
Absolutely.
And there will be a
No
public.
further questions?
Get the pizza.
I can still cut through.
And there will be a public hearing on the land development.
Okay,
Correct.
okay.
Okay. Is there anybody else from the public who'd like to speak? Is there anything else, Mr. Hughes?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move, I'll make a motion to grant a variance from zoning ordinance number 342, I'm sorry, number 342 is amended, Article 7, Section 700, 702F, and 702G, to enlarge the parking area at 107 Ridge Pike by 7,843 square feet, to allow 54.3% impervious coverage where a maximum of 35% is allowed, and to allow 45.7% green space where a maximum or minimum of 65% is required.
Does that include the waiver on parking?
7,845, I believe, is the correct, that's the number on the plan.
Oh, okay, I'm reading it off the...
What's the correct numbers, 45 or 43? The plan says 45. Okay, 45.
45, okay. I correct that, then 7,845 square feet.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We'll vote. Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Aprile?
In favor.
Mr. Ramondo?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're adjourned.
It's gonna be a nice little area.
Hang it.
Bang. Bang the darn thing.